What a great lineup of speakers we had this morning. The content was spot on. So I received a text from Dora, and she might be able to give us this real life scenario. What's taking place in the showroom right now live, how F&I actually meets the customer at the salesperson's desk. So if you will, give me a few seconds to see if I can put this one together.
At Autofi, we power the end-to-end digital sales and finance experiences of the most innovative brands and deliver funded deals. And we're excited to build upon this with the launch of the next evolution of our commerce platform, Deal Center. Deal Center extends the deal-making power of the sales desk to everyone in the dealership, from your BDC, sales, F&I, and management. And it empowers them to more effectively work deals in the showroom and online in a shared experience with the customer. Deal Center enables your team to present side-by-side vehicle comparisons with details of the deal, send remote deals, and pencil deals alongside the customer. It helps your management quarterback the sales floor and structure deals in seconds, run soft credit pulls, and gain visibility into important financial calculations. And it adds efficiency to your finance process by enabling a customer to complete a digital credit app and receive firm offers of credit in real time. Dealers using Deal Center see more trust, efficiency, and profitability in their sales process. So if you're ready to enable your team with a digital platform that will supercharge their performance, get started with Deal Center today. Reach out to us to learn more.
Customer A visits your website and is interested in purchasing a vehicle. They fill out an interest form with a name and email and wait for your team to respond. Customer B visits your website and is interested in the same vehicle, only this customer has clicked the Get Pre-Qualified button on your inventory page. Within seconds, you have access to a FICO score, open trade lines, and other useful credit and contact information. Which of these leads would you rather work? Quick Qualify is a softball solution offering a call-to-action lead form that can be integrated into digital retailing, dealership websites, email marketing, live chat, and in-store applications. Once completed, the form provides consumers their credit score for free, while providing dealers detailed credit information on a warm lead. Using Quick Qualify on your dealership website enables consumers to get pre-qualified at the top of the sales funnel, improving both your sales cycle and the customer's buying experience. With a credit file in hand, your team can start their process more confidently and have closing conversations earlier in the sales cycle, helping you close deals faster. Drive more qualified leads. Gain visibility into creditworthiness before a customer even visits your dealership. Hold deal gross and sell more cars. If you're ready to get more actionable data regarding your consumers earlier in the sales process so you can close deals faster, then give 700 Credit a call today.
Here we are. Good to see you, Dora. Now you are going to walk us through the showroom experience, if you will. So how about it?
How about we just give you a little taste, like a teaser?
Okay, you can give me a teaser. I love teasers. I'm fine.
Okay, so right now we have Bonnie and Frank here. They're our customers. They're actually buying a vehicle right now as we speak.
Awesome. Congratulations. Beautiful store.
And so the first question I had for you was, well, how do you feel the process is with doing everything on the iPad and doing it digitally?
Works great.
Yeah, it was great. An easy process. So the whole idea is that it's an easy process, it's a fast process, other than when I'm here slowing them down. I'm so sorry. And then we have an amazing F&I, Miguel.
Hey, Miguel.
Hey, Becky, how are you? Nice to see you.
Good to see you.
So explain to her what you're doing right now.
This is what we're going to do, right? So we're going to do digitally in the iPad, we're going to sign the bill of sale, right? This is an out-of-state deal, which we already completed in the iPad, the DMV paperwork. Now we are in the last step, which is the bill of sale, okay? And It goes as follow. It's very simple, super quick and simple. What we're going to do is, obviously, this right here is the consent to do everything electronically. So you're going to sign above that. Perfect. Right? And this is what this splits, okay? This is your personal information, right? And this is the information on the car you're buying. Okay. Now, right here, you have obviously the option that we have no trade. As you see, this is the unpaid balance. Okay, we already have $500 in house, and we have a check for the difference. So the unpaid balance due on a credit card is just that. Okay, so what we do is we're gonna tap the purple boxes right there.
Yep.
Yep. Go. That one right there. One's right there. And this is the acknowledgement, obviously, that you're buying a car from Germain of Naples. You're gonna sign this form. And one right there. Perfect.
So that's how easy it is. They're right now doing the buyer's order, and that portion is completed. And as you see, we're not in our office. We're actually on the showroom floor.
At the salesperson's desk.
Yeah.
So this is what's happening right now. Finance is with the customer and they're signing the customer. They're doing some document signing.
Correct. And
Wow.
it's that easy. And like I said, it allows us to, when things are that streamlined, it allows us as finance, and you can kind of see here, we have Carlos, and he's trying to close the deal. So you can kind of see it happening real time.
There you go. We're still closing deals.
Correct.
It's still right. We just don't have all the other.
We're not in our office anymore. We're out there. We're interacting, and when we get involved sooner, it allows for us and the dealership to maximize these deals. You can't beat that.
No, you can't beat that at all. This is something that I got to say that I've been preaching all along for I don't know how many years, how important it is really to get out there with the customer engaged sooner rather than later. And man, you guys are all over it. I mean, you really are. It's refreshing to see. And for those that might be fighting this a bit, maybe this will help a bit to say, hey, it's okay, but get over it already because we have, and it works.
Yeah. And I think more and more that we reiterate it, eventually you're going to see more people realizing that they should at least look into it. And from looking into it is all you need. It's just like buying a car. I was just looking, right? And then all of a sudden you're in the dealership and you realize you're buying a car. I think once they realize how efficient it is and how much more profits the dealership can make, how can a GM deny it? How can they say, I don't want to at least try it out? Or
Right.
they're going to at some point. The ones that don't are probably the ones that are going to sell their dealerships to the people that are advanced, and just like we did with Lincoln, we have people that don't want to be bothered and couldn't care less. And then you have people that are wanting to acquire more stores. And obviously they're able to do that because all of our stores do really well and we're all doing digital.
So would you say that all the stores across the board in the Germain group are all digital at this point?
I can confirm 100%, but I want to say the majority of them, because we've been doing it for 2 years, are digital. The majority. I mean, right now we're trying to get Lincoln on board because we just acquired that store. So that tells me that it's Mr. Germain that is 100% behind Kramer.
You can't help it. I'd be too. With everything that, has happened and what you've been able to accomplish with it. And it's just not some thought up scheme to try to sell digital menus or some sort of a digital platform. This is real.
It's real and it's the most compliant way of doing it.
That's, I mean, right? And it keeps all the heat off of you. Keeps
Yep.
all the heat off of you. You don't have to chase these, these steps. You don't have all this disruption of customers coming back to be recontracted or documents that were incorrect, incomplete, and all the other stuff that they're constantly chasing after, to put the deal together, to get the deal funded. You don't
Right.
have any of that anymore.
No. And like I mentioned earlier,
Yep.
controller sent us an email saying how happy she was that we had all the deals prior to closing, and we got paid 5 days later because she was able to process everything that much sooner. Even her, which was the one that didn't want us to do this at all, she thought that there would be harder for the controller to implement this. And
Uh-huh.
geez, this is so easy. We've never had all the deals in the office this quick, and she finally, as much as she didn't want to admit it, but she finally sent an email out saying, hey, I appreciate it, it's working out, I'm happy now.
When you can don't get me wrong, but anytime you can get the blessings from the comptroller, life is pretty freaking good.
Like, I've never met a controller that was, the sweet little, tough like nails, just like anybody else.
Oh, yeah. And so when you can get an email that says, thank you so much, guys. You have made my day. Something good has happened. I mean, that's just.
And she just recently leased 2 vehicles for her and her family. And she didn't have to come in my office. I just said, hey, listen, do me a favor, just open up your emails. You got 4 of them, just click on everything. And boom, boom, boom. She goes, Dora, this is so easy. Is this what the customers are doing? Yeah. She's like, I love it. And bought pizzas for everybody. I mean,
Bought pizzas for everyone. Can you believe a comptroller buying pizza for everyone? Yeah. So that just tells you right there.
she bought, yes.
So I hope dealers are listening in. They need to be listening into this. They need to hear and see that it can work, can happen, and it does happen. It's not a bunch of buzzwords, in the industry.
Right.
It really does work, and it really has made a big, big difference in your store. Customers are happier. It's more efficient. We don't have any disruption. We've reduced that. You get to work on every single customer or be able to, respond in a positive way with every customer all the time, because you're not having to chase your tail, right? And waiting for other customers to come in to recontract. So that's definitely, what's not to love?
The whole process the best thing is just embrace it. Just look into it. And then once you realize how good it is, it's hard to go back to anything else.
There you said it. That's it. We're going to go ahead and we are going to end this on a positive note. And thank you again, Dora. I appreciate the time. Thanks, Brian Kramer. And thank you for the walk around. I think that is really telling. I think that was, that was great. That was fantastic.
I think we could talk and talk, but until you see it, just like I couldn't help it. Here it is, we're talking about it, and it's like, you know what? Let me just show it to you. It's happening live right now. It's exciting. The customer is smiling.
Well,
see.
I can't wait to come to your dealership in the next couple months. I'm coming. And we're going to do some deals together, and we are going to have some fun with this, and we are going online, and boy, let me tell you, it'll be fun. It will be a lot of fun.
Can't wait.
And then afterwards, I owe you dinner. So I'll take you to dinner.
Yay.
That'll be fun. Thank you again, Dora. And you have a great day, and appreciate the time you spent with us showing your showroom and your customers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, Brian Davis, I can't thank you enough for being here with us for the F&I Master Series Forum. I couldn't think of someone any better to talk about what's going on the digital age about data. I mean, I know dealers are probably thinking, gosh, enough already about this data. And you mentioned something earlier on, analysis paralysis. How do we make this data a lot more quantifiable for dealers?
It's a great question, Becky, and thanks for having me. I'm so excited to share and learn. That's what it's all about.
It is.
I live in data and in dealerships, but we're really having a big struggle right now because there's so much data being generated around every corner, and it seems like every vendor, who can take a breath has another spreadsheet or another dashboard to look at, and folks are suffering, right? They don't know where to find the real truth and who to listen to, who can provide value, because really everybody wants to know what to do next. And I think that's the key. Okay, great. You're telling me what everybody else is doing. How do I do that? We are struggling right now. Our industry and just the world in general is creating so much data. I think that's why a lot of people are struggling today, is they don't know where to go for truth.
So how can you embrace this data at the dealership to align with what your processes are? What's the best way to go about that?
Well, as I mentioned, there's a lot of data in the world, and I think through the last 2 decades of working with dealerships, I've noticed that dealerships are very, very focused on making the most of the opportunities that they have in front of them. So we're very good at controlling our domain when we have ownership of who's in the building, who's on our property, who's engaging with our people. We do a great job. Outside of that, it becomes a little more hairy. And I think the key is that we don't understand why we need to use the data and what we need to do with it. So really, when you look at, I need to make a change here, a lot of people kind of get into, I need to put these tools in place. I need to engage shoppers in this way. I think we're really forgetting about the purpose of why we want to look at data, ingest it, and use it. The marketing company Epsilon, which is huge out there, they're multinational. They put out some research recently that said, this is the key for me, 4 out of 5 customers or more would prefer to buy from a retailer who customized an experience for them. And what better industry to accentuate that than the second largest investment people make? And I don't want to get cliche, but it's true. If I'm going to spend $50,000+, I should know, that you're listening to me, you care, and you're going to provide me with things that not only I want, but things that I need. And you're not just going to surprise me and bury me with it at the end. So we have to always think about the experience the customer is having with us. And when everything was brick and mortar, I think it was a lot easier for folks to understand what they needed to do. But now that so much of the process is out of our purview, it becomes very, very difficult. So it's all about the experience and understanding what can we do with the experience based on the data. Okay. So stop there for a second. Does this sort of make sense, or am I starting to get deep already?
No, well, you are a very deep person, just FYI. But no, I think it does make sense. Yes. In fact, there's that saying, if you don't know where you're at, you have no idea where you're going.
Sure.
And, as we talk through a lot of this digital retailing and how that whole digital journey works to gain a responsive acknowledgement, or engagement, it's important that we know where our customers are during that fact-finding period, so that we can do a better job embracing or leveraging this technology.
For sure. For sure. And I think that many dealers, some don't like the term digital retailing. Some just think it's retailing, right? We get that all the time. I think whether you're using a tool or not, or you're using a process that a vendor brings to you or not, at the end of the day, you're doing it because there's something missing in your process. You maybe don't know quite what it is, but I think we're all kind of guilty at throwing solutions against the wall and seeing what sticks. I do it at my home, right? My kids don't want to eat certain foods, so I keep trying. I keep buying new stuff and hoping that, gosh, they're not going to come at me and say they're hungry at that time because they didn't want to finish that particular meal. So we all as humans go through a lot of trial and error. So when we hear, hey, I'm doing a great job with digital retail, I'm selling a ton of cars and I have less sales expense, blah, 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 I think we get sort of fear of missing out and say, okay, well, I need it too. And to make matters worse, the OEMs push upon us approved brands that we can engage with and tools that we can use. They'll help us pay for it. So I think what we're doing is we're still kind of not focusing on the real issue, which is we need to understand whether or not we're providing what customers want at the right time. And we're also not taking the opportunity to present and promote things that benefit us in the process as well, which I know you have a lot of background in F&I, and some solutions are very, very valuable to the customer, and some of them are just profit generating, and they're little ways for us to protect our nest egg as dealerships as well. So I think we can satisfy both if we can understand a little bit deeper at what point in the process is it okay for me to say, I know you're looking at this car, let me talk to you about how you would protect this car. Let me talk to you about what the service of this vehicle is going to look like and how we can make that easy. How can we protect your investment, right? Because it's not just when the person gets to the store.
Right. So we want to have the data to be able to determine, okay, we're shopping for a particular vehicle. It's coming from our third-party provider. Did it come from there? Did it come from our website directly? Then once we acknowledge how that customer has come and what type of vehicle that they're shopping for, then it's important to determine, is that customer, do they want to know more information as it pertains to financing? Right. And what terms are they, and how long, I guess, that they may spend to determine some of their financing options, and then being able to determine, did they walk through a menu presentation of certain products? Was there more interest of that particular product versus another?
All of that is very, very important to what I would say is the consumer side of the process. All of these things you're talking about are events that take place during the process of considering what vehicle you want or need, what you can afford, what you should do to make the most of your situation. And these things typically don't happen in front of the dealership live and in living color. Right. So I would absolutely agree that all of these things are sort of things that we've kind of just made. We know they're happening, but we don't really pay a lot of attention to them until the person's right in front of us. But when you talk about something like the amount of time spent on a dealership's website, well, I'll even go a step back from there. When we're talking about focusing on what we perceive that we can control, a face-to-face interaction or an on-the-phone interaction with a customer, even a chat, we're talking about a very, very minute percentage of all of the events that are happening from our customers. So what I mean by that is, if you look at all of the website traffic a dealership gets versus the tiny number of people who actually raise their hand and say, hey, I have a question, or hey, I want to know more, you're talking about a 10-to-1 ratio. Less than 10% of people ever make themselves known in general through the process. But what they're doing still, even though they're not telling you, here's my info, call me, is they're saying, I'm looking at new and used vehicles because, well, the one I want is new and it's not there. I've looked 30 times for a Corolla. I can't find one, so I'm going to look at used. While I'm over here, I'm going to figure out how much I can afford, right? I want to know what my trade-in value of my car is. All of these things are happening behind the scenes, but we as busy professionals in the retail environment only pay attention to what comes out in front of us via a lead or some sort of notification that just says, oh yeah, duh, this person is really interested.
How important is that data? And why should a dealer drill down into this information? And would that help them to determine what type of processes that they are offering that customer?
The data is incredibly important, but not only that, it's incredibly valuable. What a lot of folks don't realize about what's happening online is that by inviting all of these different vendors to your place of business, you have a website, you have trade-in tools, you see the little, not calling out Capital One, but you have the little Capital One Finance button on your website. You have different things to give the customer confidence that you're the right person to do business with. Well, whenever somebody interacts with something like that on your website, Becky Chernek Toyota.com, if somebody's there and they're interacting, if somebody else is on your website, a different vendor or a business partner, they're paying attention to exactly what that customer is doing on your website. So first and foremost, why should I pay attention to it? It's because a lot of people are listening to your data. They're getting the same data that you're getting about your customers. The difference is a lot of these vendors are aggregating this data so that they can better understand what the customer wants when they engage, not only with you, but with their specific tool or button. So when I consult with dealerships, my question to them a lot of times is, if you're not getting the data, that's a big problem. If you're getting it and you're not looking at it and trying to make yourself better because of it, you're missing a huge opportunity. So the opportunities, I think, are what we want to kind of focus on, and specifically as it relates to F&I. If you can look within the people that are on your website and understand that, I've got a service customer who came in to do a service appointment on my website. During the same visit, they also looked at a finance application page. They didn't submit a lead on that page, but
right. I remember us talking about that.
They went there and they spent time. Okay. That was an event, but that was not an object.
How much is that being measured right now on these CR platforms?
Like CRM platforms?
Well, the CRM platform. Well, you have the lead sheet form.
Right.
But then let's say that customer, maybe they were in this service, they were thinking of servicing their vehicle, and then they jump off and they decide, well, maybe I might look and see whether or not I want to buy a car.
Right.
Is that lead? I mean, how are they following that lead? How does that all work?
Well, right now it works in the sense of, if that person does submit a lead, then, for instance, if it's a finance application form that comes in, or even a partial form, I submitted my name and my email, but then I decided, I'm just not ready to give you my social. I don't know. I'm kind of weird about this whole thing. Even if the sales team gets that information where somebody has raised their hand and said, hey, I'm interested in financing, oftentimes they aren't able to also see, oh, this is an existing service customer who has a 3-year-old vehicle, and they're all of a sudden out of warranty based on mileage. So we're not looking at tying it together between service and finance. And I think that's a huge missed opportunity, because if the dealer principal looked at that scenario and said, well, I'm glad we got the service appointment, but why are they looking at finance as well? Should we handle this situation differently based on that group of events and those signals? Absolutely. We don't just call and say, hey, I wanted to ask you if you want to finance a Nissan Rogue, or are you interested in a specific vehicle? Because the answer to that question in that particular case we were talking about was, oh, no, I'm a service customer. I was just here to schedule service.
Right.
Oh, okay, man, thank you so much. That BDC agent is on to the next. They're not thinking from the framework of the total dealer ecosystem. How does sales, finance, and service possibly benefit from this situation? So to answer your question, dealerships aren't really looking at all of that information at the same time. And quite frankly, it's very difficult to break it down that granular each time. It's very, very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we make that effective? How do we make it so that, well, I'd love to have that flag go up that says, hey, this service customer is also interested in finance, and they are telling me about it. I'm not asking them if they're interested. But how can I react to that? It becomes the question that we get most often. And the answer is, you really need to decide what type of interactions are important to know about. When can I know if someone is confused? Would be a great question to ask. How can I look through my website data with my vendors and understand, when is somebody failing a process that I put in place? When are they engaging in F&I and then stopping? When are they looking at products? I've got a customer down the street from me who uses Roadster as a transparency tool. They don't even care what kind of lead volume they get. They want to have a place for the customer to live and to get information that they need. And they feel like Roadster does a good job of it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so they look at it that way, and they try to understand, okay, well, this person went back and forth between Roadster and my website, looked at 7 different cars, and looked at payments for each one. Okay, this person has a question about affordability and what level of that vehicle, what trim level can I afford? Because I looked at 6 different ones. Okay, what's my payment going to be across the board for these cars? So if a dealership can think about, maybe there's a lot of confusion, and maybe that's a reason why not many people convert to a lead on my website. It takes time to figure out what to do next, but I think just having that curiosity can really be very valuable, because without looking at what we can do better with the data we already have, we innately become spenders of new opportunities. We're trying to constantly engage new people into the process because that's sort of the easy answer. Just give me more at bats and I'll have more hits, right? To come from a baseball standpoint.
Sure.
But when we can look at the strategy of what's happening throughout the game, we can figure out how to get the hits that we have, right? The people that are stepping to the plate, we can figure out how to get them through the process, because a lot of it's not happening in front of us. We just need to listen.
What I found fascinating, and I'm just going to hit on this just again, is that we have third-party providers who have access to our data. I think that's what you said. And maybe all that's changing up. I'm not, and I know more and more dealers are really trying to make sure that that they're keeping that data, as opposed to this third party holding on to this data. But that being said, this data is going out and giving these other companies, I guess that's what you're saying, providers, the ability to get that information to be able to extend or offer other financing and option and product offerings to that same customer. Did I get that right?
You did. You hit it on the
That's
head.
amazing.
It's scary. It's incredibly. If you were able to look at some of the things that I have a chance to look at through the people in my organization, it's terrifying, actually.
Yeah.
Because we're so excited about opportunities to do more and to do better that we unfortunately cast a blind eye, to people that have ulterior motives. And I'm not going to sit here and say that there's a ton of vendors out there that are trying to eat dealers' lunch, but certainly the pressure is on. You look at how big the news was that Carvana purchased Odessa, and just the laundry list of topics around that. And in my opinion, that's a data play, right?
Yeah.
They got access to so much data about how dealerships do business to acquire inventory, what they paid, how much they bid, where they stopped bidding, how does that change regionally? And it's just like, oh my gosh, we gave them keys to the kingdom in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big, huge, massive scale conversation. But when we look at a dealership, I've got some customers that have, one of them is a particular, a good friend. They have 5 different credit apps on their website.
Wow.
Right?
5.
They made it really stinking easy at every corner to have the consumer figure out where they can submit a lead, right? That's kind of what it comes down to. And don't get me wrong, they're in markets where there's a humongous penetration of credit and lending, very, very few cash deals, so on and so forth. So I get it. But what I was able to show this customer is that go through the process with me. Click on this link. Look at this credit app. Okay. Now see where this is coming from. And even though it's on your website, it's not. So we don't know exactly what they're doing with the data, but every time somebody that you paid for as a dealership, you bought this traffic or you earned it, right? You invested somehow to get these people to your dealership website. Don't let them come in the front door and then go straight out the back, because you're casting a blind eye to the holes that are there, right? You don't let people run out of the F&I box without a TO. Like they don't. When I sold cars, you would get fired.
You hope not.
Well, if you didn't TO, like you were threatened to be fired. If somebody ran out of the F&I box, there was always like, oh my gosh, hey, what's going on? How can we help you figure this out? We're really sorry we upset you. When 90% of our traffic to our organization, what I call our domain, does not interact with us, what we need to understand is, where are these people clicking? Where are they looking? And what's happening with that data? Because the thing about first party data is it's the data between you, the dealership, or you, the vendor, and your potential customer, right? But when you share this data with other people through some process, your customer also becomes their customer. It's equal.
That's huge.
It's equal. So I use Capital One because it's on a ton of websites.
Yeah, it's on the ton. Exactly.
I'm a Capital One customer. I like Capital One, right?
Yeah.
But it's a black hole. It's a black hole. When somebody goes and clicks on that button, how many leads are being generated versus how many people actually click there? And my question to the dealer becomes, do you get any information from this particular vendor who does a great job for you, but do you get any understanding of like partial forms or where the confusion is, why people drop out of the process? Why don't I get more than the leads that I get? You don't, because it's protected information. However, if that was a native credit app, if that was something that you as the dealership didn't use a third party for it, I'm not saying cancel Capital One, trust me, I'm not. But if you could get more visibility into what's happening during that process, you could help yourself and your people understand that customer. Why did they bounce after one page view inside the credit app? Why didn't they get past the first line?
I wonder how many dealers are actually really digging into that piece.
Very
And I
few.
know that half the time, I don't think that they're really doing all that great of a job following up the leads that they get through Capital One to begin with.
No,
I don't know. I mean,
yeah.
I guess it's all over the board on that one.
You can't, I mean, there's so much diversity around processes,
Yeah,
strengths and weaknesses. We could go on forever. And I don't think
that's
I've ever seen two dealerships within the same dealer group that are exactly the same. They all have different flavors. And that's okay. That's what makes retail so exciting when you look at the franchise dealer system and even indies, is that we all try to provide a great experience and we do things differently. Certainly helps keep me in business, but I think that what we can do, though, because we're at this crosshairs where crossroads, I guess you would say, you can't possibly digest and dissect all this data. You can't possibly see it all without help. But what you should be looking to do is to understand, what are the signals and how can I act on those signals to make sure that I don't miss an opportunity? So what I mean by that is, at the very least, whether or not you use a third party for trade-in value, use a third party for financing pre-approvals, if you use digital retail, at the very least, try to understand, when somebody goes to this page, if they're looking for more information, how can I get information to them? So there's companies out there who, based on what activity somebody does on a website, if I've gone to a finance page, I'm going to automatically communicate with that person. If I have their email address already, I'm going to say, hey, did you have more questions about financing? We would love to help. How can we help you?
Yeah.
Don't say submit this form, because that's probably why they dropped out of the process in the first place. But be a genuine person and offer assistance. Hey, we've seen that you've been on our website. You can do this in real time. If I'm shopping the website and I've looked at 5 cars, I can show an ad that says, or a pop-up that says, hey, are you having trouble figuring it out? Can we go through your shopping cart and figure out what you don't need? Can I offer you some assistance? Take the person that's looked at 6 different Toyota Siennas. Her name's Emily. She's my wife. What trim level do I need? I don't know. What features do you want? I don't know. I keep looking at them and I like the price of this one, but it doesn't have this gizmo. Okay. If I'm a dealership, I can see that this person has looked at all of these things and probably needs help. Furthermore, I can see when they come back to my website and look again, and we can ask them, do you want to look at the same thing, or do you need more? Do you need help deciding? What can I do to make this better for you? Because everybody wants to be like Amazon and have the customer relationship and to have the downstream repeat business. And I think F&I is key to that.
Yes.
If you take care of them through the process, right? But we got to get them there. Show me what it's going to cost to protect my new $50,000 purchase. Be transparent. And so at least you're not surprising me and knocking me off my socks when you show me in the dealership. Tell me about all of this stuff that could benefit me. Consumers want to buy stuff from you. We're consumers, right? So don't surprise me with it when I'm already tired and my kids are screaming. Help me figure out beforehand. Right?
I think so too. I think that it is so important. Why not give the customer some information? Definitely give the customer the information. It has already been proven that more customers will buy if they don't feel as if they've been threatened, and they have the information firsthand. They can make a viable decision, right? And
Amen. Yes.
I'd much rather deal with an educated customer than a non-educated customer all day long.
I mean, how much better of a conversation can you have when you finally get the chance to close a deal with somebody?
Yeah.
If they know what the options are and they've had a little bit of time to think about it.
Exactly. So we had a conversation and, we talked through too about this reoccurring customer and the importance of, there might be times in that micro moment when we're doing a menu presentation, it's just too much overwhelm,
Yes.
information coming at them, and they just can't make that decision. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to make a decision after the fact.
Right.
So those are things as well that it'd be important to put some sort of a, that process in place to assure we're back in front of that customer, that it is a reoccurring type
right.
situation, right? Customer.
We can absolutely do that. We can automate those processes, and we can even help those individual vendors that are selling those products be more successful by constantly showing the right information at the right time when somebody's already, now they're starting to wonder, should I have bought that warranty? I mean, there's so many places we could talk for hours.
Well, we certainly can.
Yeah.
I do want to thank you for, I can't get over how quick our 30 minutes.
I know. It always
Here we
happens
are.
like that.
So
Yep.
has come, but a lot of great information, Brian. And as always, I can't thank you enough for being on the F&I Masters forum with us, the
Absolutely.
digital age. And thank you again. It was excellent information. So is there anything you would like to share before we go ahead and call it a
Oh, I would just like to say thank you for what you're doing, and thanks for the opportunity to to have me on the show here. And you know what? It's all about helping first. We all have stuff we need to sell. We all have to pay the bills, but the industry's been good to me and my family. So if I can help somebody figure it out or be a sounding board, I'm absolutely 100% there for you. Whether or not you want to buy from me, it does not matter. So thanks again, Becky. I appreciate it.
And they can find you on LinkedIn. And how else can they find you?
Yeah, LinkedIn. I'm also on Clubhouse pretty often, or just it's brian.davis@orbee.com. That's the easiest way for sure.
Definitely. Well, I know you post a lot of great content on LinkedIn, and so certainly you can find you there. And Brian, thank you again, and appreciate your time.
Thanks, Becky. Talk to you later.
You betcha. Steve Zabawa, welcome to the F&I Master Series Forum, the digital age. It's certainly a pleasure to have you here with us this morning. And to get things started, where are you? I mean, you have got an amazing background behind you. And while you're talking about backgrounds, why don't you kind of let everyone know about your interesting background being a, I guess, dealer principal along with a tech person. So how did all that happen?
I don't know. It had to be my mom and dad, but I'm very blessed that I've been able to have a 35-year career in the car business, and probably half of it's been technology driven, either helping ADP do their lease right way back in the 90s to bring in our Kona out of the ground, which was the first DMS that was in a SaaS model in the cloud. And then I did a couple projects with Red Flag products, and then as well as a front end dealer span product. And then now I got a winner. It's called WebBuy, and it's digitally retailing cars, and spent 10 years of my life on it. But it's all based here in Montana. So I'm going to show you a little bit of what Montana can look like here.
Wow.
This is Lone Peak, Montana. This is 11,000 feet up. It's where it's the ski hill of Big Sky, Montana. You can see it's a bluebird day today. And those are all the Gallatins and the Spanish Peaks right there. But anyway, that's where it's coming out of my studio in Big Sky today.
Well, I couldn't get any better than that. And again, I appreciate that you're taking the time to be with us today. Certainly glad we have you here. So, okay. So I've been dying to ask you, a dealer principal Okay. And now we're talking DR, digital retailing. And everybody and their mothers talks about digital retailing, if you really want to know the truth.
Yeah, true.
And there's this DR about, oh, more like a lead gen. And after that, it's like, okay, all bets are off. Okay. And do you think more dealers just think DR is a lead gen? What do you, being put on your dealer hat for a minute? What do you think they really think this whole thing is? Do they think this is just a buzzword, like not much happening?
Great opening question. So, 1/3 of the car community of my buddies that are car dealers absolutely hate it, do not want to be transparent, and don't really want anything to do with it, but they're forced by the manufacturers to put something on their website. And they use it as a lead getter, and they try not to even, they discourage people to go through it. So that's 1/3 of the group. The other third is in between, where they're trying to figure it out. They're scratching their head now. They're really coming to NADA and checking out all the different digital retailing tools. And quite frankly, the digital retailing tools are just growing up now. So we're just at the very infant stage of digital retailing, in my opinion. And we're trying to convert an old way of doing business, traditional, right, with a lot of humans, and trying to do something with no humans and two thumbs, right? So we're really going full circle on this thing. The other third of the guys are on it. They're very aggressive, and they're doing a really good job, and they're really looking for the best tools, and they're trying to find an end-to-end solution that can actually sell a car at 11 o'clock at night with no humans. And think about that. It's a very complicated transaction, as we all know, and we want it to be very profitable. So that's another element. And we have unsophisticated buyers, and we got sophisticated buyers on the other end. So you have to make a tool that can be pliable and handle all different versions of people, ages, brackets, women, men, you name it, everybody from a dishwasher to a CEO of a company, right? So you think about how you have to engineer that all into a piece of software that absolutely is lightning fast and remembers everything and doesn't make any mistakes. A very, very difficult accomplishment by any team that gets that done.
So I've got this thought in my head. Mergers and acquisitions. I do, and you were on my live talk with Becky Chernek, and thank you very much for that show. It was a great show. Recently, I had Gina Cocking on. I don't know if you know Gina or not. She is from Kline Advisors and a very bright person. And that's what she does. She does everything with mergers and acquisitions, and for dealers as well as for providers, insurance providers, and things like that. And where I'm going with this, with these big time mergers, I mean, these guys are spending, a lot of money for dealerships today. And it's at an all-time high, right? History breaking mergers.
It's unbelievable what's going on right now. Back when I first bought my stores, the only way you could get a store bought really was from owner financing. So you'd go in there, put a couple $100,000 down, and the owner would finance you. He liked you, and you paid him off over 5 years or so. That's how most people got their start in the car business, is from the previous owner financing you as a sales manager up the ladder. He wanted you to be successful. He wanted his exit strategy and get some money for his retirement. But then the private equity money started coming into the business, and then the public money came into the business. And now it's a free for all. There's so much money trying to buy the dealerships. And at the end of the day, it's a very good business. It's very profitable. It produces good real estate returns, good insurance returns. As you know, in the back end, the F&I department is a very juicy piece of our business. And then parts and service has gotten even better and better over the years. So it's a very stable, quality business. We're going into electrification and digital retailing, a couple changes that are going on right now. But at the same time, I've never seen so much money being thrown at, like me. I got just a nice Subaru store in Billings, Montana. And people from Germain bought a little hotel out here, and he's out trying to buy my store. David McNeil from WeatherTech. There's just a lot of good people that would love to buy my store now. And it's nice to be wanted, but it's not always been that way. It's really picked up in the last 5 years.
I guess where I'm going with that as well is that you got these larger groups now. And I don't think that they're acquiring the stores just to acquire the store so much, right? I think that they're going to be putting processes in place to streamline this process, to make it easier and for the customer to buy a car, to be engaged sooner with that customer, similar to CarMax.
Yeah.
Look at CarMax. I mean, that digital journey is, obviously what they're doing, how they're doing it is really helping them to maximize sales. I mean, I go to one dealership and they're sitting on 100 cars. You go across the way there, or maybe 200. They're sitting on easy 300-400 cars. What's the difference between CarMax and this other store? So I imagine these other larger groups, that's where they're going. They're looking for these DR tools to streamline the process, to acquire and sell more vehicles, and at the end of the day, to maximize profits from online to in dealership. And what's up with that? Am I sort of kind of right or what on that?
Well, CarMax was on the cutting edge of customer experience, right?
Mhm.
So I didn't understand it till I went to a CarMax up in New England next to Auto Fair stores. I was getting them up and running on digital retailing, but the guy at the Honda store he was giving me a rough time. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to go next door to your competitor here, CarMax. I'm going to go through the digital retailing experience over there and see exactly what they're doing. So in about 15 minutes, I bought a Cadillac, approved with a loan. And then they had like 50, they had only 200 or 300 on the ground, but they had 5,000 to choose from that they could deliver to you within 1 or 2 or 3 days. Okay. So they take advantage of all their other stores close by and all their inventory. So it was very interesting. And then the guy that sold to me was a 27-year-old musician in shorts and rings in his ear. And I'd never hire him in a million years for one of my salespeople. And he just helped me, coach me through the actual piece of software. And it was okay. It wasn't as good as WebBuy, but it was decent. And I was just clicking through, and then the loan offer came back. So I was approved. And then I took delivery of a Cadillac about 2 days later, so I blew the deal up at the end because I was just test marketing the deal, but it actually worked. There was not a sales manager in sight. There was no control point selling going on. There was no finance manager in the building. Okay. So I'm not sure everybody understands that, so they come out, they have a finance person that just does the paperwork, brings it out, and you sign it, and it's super quick, nothing. And then during the time while you're waiting to get approved for about that 3-4 minutes, they show you a service contract and a gap program for your car on a video. And then the salesperson says, do you want it or don't you? And there's no negotiating on the price. This is how it is. And their take rate is 60 to 70% service contracts at all the CarMaxes across the country. Now they are, used cars, so they're more likely to get a service contract. But at the same time, no F&I manager, super simple, clean transaction, and simple. So I learned a lot from that one. That was about 3 years ago. So if you haven't done it yet, or you haven't worked at a CarMax, you need to go do it. It'll open your eyes, and that's the future. That's Tesla's doing all their cars. They sold 1 million cars last year digitally with a terrible piece of software. I mean, if you actually go through it, Carvana's piece of software for digital retailing is okay, but there's humans popping up everywhere. They haven't figured it out. WebBuy's far more sophisticated than all those.
So you mentioned this, I didn't. And people are freaking out about this, Steve. I'm going to tell you, F&I people are frigid. They are freaking out about single point sales associates and DRN. What's going to happen to me? And I think what you're saying is they're being repurposed in other areas. And so whether that be a producer, somebody's got to get the deal approved. I'm not sure exactly, who that person is or what that's all about. But do you really think, and I'm only thinking as a dealer, person would think that this single sales associate, and I'm hearing the numbers, I hear it because, and here's the thing, let me finish the one thought. Can they really be a high performer, right? Can they actually be a high performer, and are they going to leave profit on the table?
Yes.
And
yeah, so I'll tell you this: nobody has to worry about losing their job. At digital retailing, CarMax, nobody's I don't see those jobs going away. I see them streamlined, and I see them, instead of say doing 50 or 70 deals a month, I see them doing 100, because with digital retailing, a lot of your stuff's going to be pre-sold. It's going to be quicker, faster, better. I just see that there's 50% of the deals go down pretty easy, as you know. They got great credit. That's in line. No big deal. Trades clean and all that. The other 50% of the deals, you need a great F&I director getting the deal bought, or a great sales manager figuring out how to get the deal done. You have some relationship with some lender that's going to get that thing done, and you're going to be able to convince that customer to do it, right? So nobody's has to worry about that. I just think you're going to have more time to train, more time to be on top of your game, and take yourself from $2,000 a copy to $3,000 a copy. I think really that's the end game. And what's really nice about digital retailing is that they get prepped ahead of time by watching the video for the service contract company that you represent, the gap, pay protections, whatever you got. And they come on in now that they're a little bit more informed. They're a little bit actually more comfortable. And it's not just thrown at them in the last 2 seconds as far as what they're going to buy after they bought their car. So I see great things happening. Nothing's gone backwards since digital retailing's opened up. And I think it's gone forward. And most people still want to come to the dealership. They want to see the service department, the parts department. They want to drive the car, smell the leather, get their last few questions answered. So I just see digital retailing speeding up the process and making it more transparent, quicker, better, faster for the consumer and for the dealer, and a better shopping experience. People don't want to spend 3 to 4 hours in the dealership. Now, as car dealers think they like to do that, but truly they would rather buy their car an hour and a half, and then be on out and go to dinner or something, do something else. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Well, it's good, because that is a fear factor, and I know that we've toggled through that exchange with others in the industry about a single sales associate. Is it just better just to do it, have them finalize, with a digital menu of sorts, and then maybe that F&I person is finalizing the transaction, and maybe at that point they may be doing some sort of a upsell on the products that the customer may decide that they didn't want to take advantage of. A little bit more of a different of a twist than maybe what Carvana has. And I'm not saying Carvana is broken, because obviously they're not. And here's the other thing I wanted to point out that I had forgot. Generally, in the new car franchise stores, we have a higher penetration on new vehicles than on service contract than you do on pre-owned. So go figure. So that is a great number.
Yeah,
that
very
is a great
good
number.
Now, I had my mind blown at NADA. So we got this gorgeous booth over there, and then the Jeff Swicker guy comes over, Abe Samari, and he goes, "Hey, we're looking to consolidate and organize our whole sales process better, but we need a digital retailing tool that can actually handle all the stuff." I said, "Well, what are you thinking?" Well, they got a lot of stores in Silicon Valley and so forth, a lot of Highline, Mercedes type stores. And they said, what we want to do is we've opened up an office in Las Vegas where we can hire the talent easier. And we're gonna desk our deals from afar. Okay, they're not going to desk their deals at the store anymore. They've got a professional salesperson. They're going to set it up. It's all digitally done on a piece of software, including the e-contracting piece. I thought that was pretty cool. So the F&I manager would actually be in Las Vegas working on deals up in San Francisco.
Right.
Okay?
So they're centralizing that whole thing.
Yeah,
with their
yeah. Think
talent
about that. Yeah,
and
yeah.
everything is getting worked in that one center.
I thought that was just brilliant. So
It is.
And I'm trying to work with them right now to be the software, to supply that software to be able to pull that off. So
Yeah.
Jeff is trying. He's come out of the IT world, and he's trying to streamline the processes and take costs out of there. And but at the same time, he still needs those brilliant people that have been putting car deals together and convincing people to buy things. That is the commodity that you can't put into a piece of software. And that's still, very valuable.
Well, technology doesn't replace the human factor. And what it's really, I think, ideal for is to give us more leverage. It is to enhance the entire process, to help us to, if we used it correctly. But too many times, this is what I see. And I still say, frankly, I love the fact that you have dealers that are fact finding, trying to roll up their sleeves. Is this the right DR system for me, for my use, what I need to do it, what based off of my process? Now, that's probably one of the smartest conversations, to tell you, because I don't hear that enough. I don't hear when you went ahead and decided on this DR system, whatever system that it may be, did you consider anything? Are they in alignment to what's going on in your dealership? What do you have to change to make this whole thing come together, to bridge the gap between what's online to what's happening in that dealership to make this come together? And I don't think that there's enough conversation. There's not enough thinking through expectations.
I think that's where it's going, Becky, though. That's where it's going. As over the next 5 years, I see everybody trying to find that piece that fits their way they want to sell a car.
Mm-hmm.
And there are different makes and models of digital retailing tools. So, one may work for you, one may not. Some people just want a fancy calculator. They just tell it to you right up front. That's all we want. We don't want anything else. We just want to get them engaged and get them going, and then we'll take it from there. And others are sitting there saying, no, like the Swicker deal. I want this thing to really have some horsepower in it. And,
well, I like that whole thing. I think that, dealers need to think that through. What's the frustrating part? And I'm sure you hear this, you're a part of this somehow when you implement your WebBuy. But when I am in the store, I hear the frustration from the guys in the trenches. And they're like, well, did the dealer not consider the fact that this doesn't integrate with this, or this is an alignment to how we do business, what our process is? And I don't think that they necessarily think through that sometimes. I don't think they see it as that shiny new toy. I'm liking this. This is great. But we forgot, does this integrate with what we're doing in the dealership? And I think that is so important to make it a point to determine if that's fine. To determine if this is something that fits. Like in my training, I often wondered in my workshops, like, why are you sending your F&I person here? Do you even know what I'm training? And the reason why I care about that is I don't want you to waste 3 days with me if in fact you don't care about my training. So when that individual goes back to the store, what's the very first thing that happens? The manager goes, don't worry about this interview. We've got cars to deliver. Let's go. We're selling cars today. So all that training just simply a waste of time. That's kind of, how I see it. So I see like systems, your platform that can truly benefit a dealer. And I know that it has the ability, right, not only to play online, but to provide the customer with a variety of options and terms that would be available in real time, dependent on what they can qualify for. You can take it how far you want to. But once that customer gets into the dealership, it can't be, well, what process? What terms? What are y'all talking about? And trying to start that process all over again.
That's right. Yeah, you got Jim Knosson, late Jim Knosson from General Motors Shop Click and Drive fame. He said, Steve, you got to be able to start a deal online and finish it digitally inside the showroom. You got to start a deal digitally inside the showroom and finish it online at the home. You got to have that type of flexibility. And the dealers, the light bulbs are coming on for the dealers to handle it that way. You see more and more dealers being more understanding with the clients coming in with all this knowledge and all these numbers, and just continue, show me what you got, instead of starting them fresh on a new deal. And with a Foursquare, that's really being really old school doing it that way.
Well, it happens probably too much. There's so many times we have some of these other DR platforms that are available, But when the customer is coming back into the dealership, it's like, okay, so what? And they do see the e-pencil or a modified Foursquare or Foursquare.
Yeah, 2 4 square, a Sharpie comes out of the drawer,
Here
right?
it comes. Let's go. Let's get back to business. I mean, we were only kidding. I don't even know why that dealer did that. And that was that was what was it was ironic. So I remember when COVID hit and I'm listening to the providers out there, and dealers are going, surely we have something on online to be able to provide that customer with some options. Maybe, I don't know, maybe even do some financing or something. I mean, most of the guys had something. They just didn't even know that they had it.
That's right.
And so I think that the the COVID really helped to move this forward more than without it.
Well, it definitely helped us. It definitely helped our company move forward. We got a ton of people signed up. It pushed our team to be able to learn how to install quickly and service people, and help dealers actually communicate without being able to go into their dealership. Right, a lot of them were locked down with federal agents outside, so you can't open up. I mean, it was pretty crazy and what happened. So anyway, it's life is good and it's changing. And one thing about a dealer, we just keep changing with the times. I can remember we didn't even use the phones back in 30 years ago to speak of. Everything that people walked on and they were grabbing brochures and you'd work them through the deal. And F&I was just selling a single service contract, one item at a time, step selling, right?
Oh, I remember those days.
Yeah,
I'm like, who wants to do that?
Yeah, now you got not only menus, but you got digital menus, and now you got digital retail, and then now you got digital menus out online. And now you got all these F&I companies have upgraded their products so that they can represent themselves well online. And then I'm not sure if anybody else does it, but we do it on WebBuys. We can package your menu up online at 11 o'clock at night so they can get some savings if they buy 3 or 4 products bundled up into a package, and we can represent it really well. So that's where it's going, whether we like it or not as dealers. We got to keep moving forward. And what I have noticed is the larger auto groups are very sophisticated, they're for the most part. And so they're looking for these answers and solutions. And they're trying to figure it out right now. We all got thrown for a loop this last year because we're making so much money right now and doing it the old fashioned way. And just telling people this is the price, take it or leave, and you're lucky to even get one, right? And that's not going to last. That's at some point in time, it's going to change up a little bit.
So what do you think dealers are doing about that? I mean, thinking through, do you think some are just kind of sitting there going, okay, we're just going to keep doing what we've been doing and, we'll figure it all out later. Don't worry about it. Let's go.
I had one auto group up in New England. They called me up. We're going to cancel your services. I said, why are you canceling the services? Well, we believe definitely in digital retail. We just don't need it right now. We've gone back to the Stone Age, as far as selling cars. You want it or don't you? And it's like the mafia type program, and that's what it is right now. So it's really weird to be in that situation now. Used cars, you do need to digitally. You need to really be out there with your digital campaigns, getting those cars exposed and sold and sell them digitally. And the new cars, what we're doing now is that it's not on cars on the lot anymore, right? It's everything that's in transit, or we're building them for customers. Like
that's right.
On Saturday at our Subaru store, we had 6 orders. And then on Monday, we had another 4 orders. That's 5 orders a day that we're taking. I mean, we got so many. We're backed up like 4 months now on orders.
What's your deposits like?
Strong. It's good.
I talked to
that, but at the same time,
Becky, we're not going to talk about that.
we just want a car deal. Give me the car. Let's go. But
but I mean, so we need to be in front of that customer, on these orders, Steve. I mean, it's like F&I. You can't just sit there and think, well, I'm just going to wait until the customer comes in and do it the old-fashioned way. And guess what? That may not happen quite like that, because now they have so many different options that are available to them as they shop for financing online. and there's so much available, bankrate.com. I mean, everything is available for the customer to shop. So if you ask me, I would much rather be in front of that sooner rather than later and try to convert that customer over to my financing somehow, some way. I'd be in front of that. I would not sit and wait until that customer makes their way into F&I, because I am telling you, there are going to be more customers obtaining financing elsewhere than they would be at the dealership. Unless, of course, you got subvented interest rates.
Well, take a look at the public companies. You got Penske that's out there pushing hard on the digital piece. Driveway with Lithia's pushing hard on that. AutoNation, 5 years ago, they spent $100 million trying to get their digital stuff to work. And so everybody's pressing it. Sonic's got their deal. Everybody's trying to do something from a digital standpoint to be able to communicate with the customer better digitally, as well as have a digital retailing tool of some nature. And then they're trying to convert their stores to a quicker, better, faster way of doing business. Because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are buying up all the stores, right? And then the larger groups underneath them, the Hendricks and so forth, are doing that. So there aren't many single point stores anymore. There's not as many as there used to be. And everybody's kind of getting rolled up into these more sophisticated groups, and they know what they're doing, and they put in the better systems, and they're getting ahead of it. And they are trying to do that. It's a learning lesson on digital retailing right now, because they're getting school, like the typical auto group, like the Tom Wood Auto Group up in Indianapolis. They just put our product on their Audi store, great results. And now they're looking at their other tools. And I say, well, those aren't so good at tools. I thought they were okay, but everything is really evolving into these better tools, number one. And then the auto group is figuring out that they would just like to have one tool on all their enterprise-wide 25 stores. That way they have one control center, right? They have one CRM, one DMS, and one digital retailing tool. Well, the manufacturers are coming in and they're trying to jam their tool on everybody. And they're half-baked. They're not really ready to go to market, but they're jamming them down everybody's throat, So it's an issue right now. And I just say you got to combine the message of what the manufacturer wants with your digital retailing tool and make it the best of all worlds. And because it's the manufacturer, it's the lender, it's the consumer, it's the dealer. You got to bring all four of those worlds together into a smooth, competent transaction.
Well, I can understand a little. I know where you're going with that. I mean, look at Ford Direct. I mean, it's just any of all that is all coming together, and GM maybe too. I think we had a conversation on that as well. Customers are shopping their financing there, so right. I mean, that's going to go ahead and again align to their DR and providing that customer with that financing through their financing company. I don't know. Or maybe will the F&I person still try to do their best to convert it off there to somebody else's? I don't know. But it's going to get interesting to see how that all comes together. That's for sure.
No question about it, Becky.
Well, I got to tell you, thank you so much for being here outside with you. It was great. I loved your background. It's probably a little cold out there. I don't know, but I really appreciated your time with us today at the F&I Master Series Forum at the Digital Age. And I always appreciate you and what you share with us and our dealers. Thank you.
Well, happy to be here. Thank you for having us.
My pleasure. Thank you. Great to see you're on, and welcome again to this F&I Master Series, the Digital Age. And I got to tell you, it is a pleasure to have you here with us. And boy, you've got some interesting topics to cover. And one, from what I understand, is updates on this FTC Graham Leach Bliley Act, and maybe a little bit on the safeguard ruling too. So to get us started, if you wouldn't mind, share your background,
Oh, sure.
what you've been doing and who you've been doing it with.
Oh, okay, no problem.
Thank you.
So I've been working in the automotive space, gosh, since the late 90s. I basically started off as a software product manager, building electronic parts catalogs that were, in thousands of dealerships. From there, I moved to from fixed operations, I moved to the front of the store and variable operations with marketing and sales and marketing types of software applications. And then one area that just sort of captured me was compliance management. So in the early 2000s, I joined a company as a product manager called Complete. And essentially, we built a dealership-specific compliance management system that helped dealers to establish a good faith compliance effort, generally with human resources, their salespeople and managers and things of that sort. And then over the last several years, after my stint there, I started another company that incorporates compliance into the marketing effort associated with lead response, email responses, and drip communications and things of that sort. So we built content that was compliant with manufacturer specifications around advertisement use, verbiage, imagery, all those elements, as well as a legal verbiage associated with when you provide pricing, for example, you want to make sure you've got the appropriate disclaimer language, that you have, state level, federal level, and whatever particular pieces of legal compliance you have within those communications, so that your average salesperson isn't creating a liability when they're expressing pricing about a given vehicle, but not necessarily the caveats and the things that pricing really represents. And so I've been doing that now for about 11, 12 years. And then I had this opportunity to partner with Peter Legere, who used to be the president of ADP Dealer Services, and has created a suite of proprietary software that allows database scanning at a deep and granular level, so you can uncover all sorts of, let's say, liability causing consumer data. So he and I have partnered up to essentially create a bundled approach to cybersecurity for dealerships in particular, because these are tools that we've put together, and we've also partnered with global players that are associated with that. So Barracuda, for example, and email protections, and other types of similar providers of those services. And so what we've done differently, that is, we're not just an aggregator of these services, but we've gone back to and created strategic partnerships with insurance providers, cyber insurance in particular. And so these are large players that are internationally known, Lloyd's of London, Swiss Re, that kind of crowd. And they look at us as a way for them to approach the automotive space in a more effective manner, because we can help them with the visibility necessary for them to feel comfortable either quoting or providing quotes that are significantly less expensive if these systems are in place. And we call that a good faith cybersecurity program. And that's really how I'm ending up here today, because part of that effort is to address the emerging regulatory environment that dealerships face, not only at a federal level, such as like you say, the GLBA safeguards rules, but also at an individual state level. So you've got California, which, as California goes, so goes the nation, and people are scared. But you got recently Colorado a couple of months ago. You've got Virginia, you've got Maine, and the list of states is growing every time. It's like a virus we might have all related to, but it's growing across the country, and these are going to have impacts on your daily processes, on what your salespeople are doing, on what your organization in general is treating all of that data. And to be frank, it is gigantic, because now this new umbrella has expanded to incorporate third-party service providers at dealerships. And so we put together this program to address all of this so that ultimately a dealer can say, I've established a good faith compliance effort, and now I can go back to my insurer, and they're going to give me a much better rate than I could have expected before it. And that's what we do.
Wow. A lot of great information. Guys, can you just keep up with Jim? I'm telling you, gals too. He is amazing. And, you know, I've known Jim for many, many years. And I got to say, his content is always right on. And I got to tell you another thing. It's deep. So that being said, what we want to talk about, or maybe what I want to ask.
Sure.
I know that Eric Johnson, as well as Patty Covington, earlier on, they were talking through, you know, some of the safeguard in the Graham-Leach-Bliley Act and some of our responsibilities. And for those that maybe you might have missed it, I can't imagine that you would, but if you would, for us, give us a better understanding as to what is going on with this this FTC, Federal Trade Commission. What is going on with this update to the Graham-Leach-Bliley Act? And if you could possibly put it in layman terms, like for us to understand, water it down, get it really simple.
So this is the second phase of the original Graham-Leach-Bliley Act, about roughly 20 odd years ago. And back then, when we were doing manual paper-based processes when selling a vehicle, they were concerned more about locking filing cabinets and making certain that there weren't personally identifiable information left in printers or in fax machines. So that just kind of gives you a sense of where they were and frankly, where they've been up until roughly 2016, 2017, where they started to look at, hey, you know what? We live in a different world in the automotive space, and that world is digital. And so what we need to do is update all of those rules to really reflect what's happened in our space over that period of time. And so as of, last year, they released a whole new set of rules that essentially speak to, let's say, the analogies to that locked filing cabinet. So for example, you want to make sure that you've got the appropriate encryption in your databases within your DMS system. And that encryption has to protect all of that data. So if it does get penetrated, at least hopefully they don't have the key to the encryption, in which case you're kind of, well, done. But so instead of worrying about locked lockers or papers left on a fax machine, you need to be worried about access control. That is, who is actually seeing this information and who's allowed to see it. So part of the biggest impacts is going to be on your third-party providers and how they allow people to see your dealership's data, right? Because you're sharing it with them. And so they need to be able to protect that data as well. So the impacts from this new approach is essentially across the board, not only the dealership themselves, but the third-party providers, whatever aggregator they might be working with. And then, of course, if they're contracting out efforts, database massaging efforts and things of that sort to even smaller, relatively unknown third parties. So all of that needs to be now collated, documented, and presented as a part of the agreements that all of these thousands and thousands of dealerships have in place. And that's going to be a huge effort in and of itself. So really, it's again, taking that sort of hard copy, oldie kind of way of doing things into a much more digital focused type of approach to protecting consumer data and locking down access to all of your systems, not just simply the database from your general manager, but from everybody, and giving them specific granular control of access to whatever data they need to do their job in today's environment.
Well, okay. So for some of us, we might want to think through it as, you and I had this conversation about ransomware. How does that even happen? I mean, it's this kind of reminds me of Criminal Minds. It just does. It's like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then, walk us through the potential. I think you can't name names, but you had a big dealer group just go through something like this. And if you would share with everyone what happened and why.
Yeah. So with ransomware, you've got a variety of angles that are coming at the dealership. So you've got social engineering, which is a term used to let's say I'm a black hat hacker and I make a phone call to find out who's the CFO for this particular dealership, and what's their name, and that kind of thing. And then you do your hunt through Google. You Google that person, you start finding out things. Heck, there are ways to get their email. So through a couple of applications online. And so they do this and they capture this amount of information, and then they create or they're able to spoof your email server, or they're just simply sending you an email from some spoofed server with a whole bunch of gobbledygook if you look close. But if you don't, then what they're hoping they'll do is get past that initial scan of that average person, and then what resides in the email themselves is a link, and that link is essentially a packet of information or packet of an executable file that once you click it, it essentially invades and impregnates your system that you're on. It's generally speaking because 85% of these phishing exercises happen at the individual personnel level. You've got more or less a ransomware executable now residing in their laptop or their desktop. And every time that they connect to your network from at home or on the road, then suddenly that executable is sending out a similar type of code set that then starts inventorying what you've got across your network. And once that inventory hits a certain threshold, they decide, because there's been communications between that executable malware and the black hat hacker that drove it into your system in the first place, so that they can decide, okay, you know what, we're at about 80-90% of the mapping. We know where everything's at. Let's decide now when we're going to do this. So I always think that they probably look at the next 3-day holiday. And in this case, it was a 3-day holiday. This individual person, a higher level executive, received an email. They clicked on the email. Nothing happened. They didn't think anything of it. The email basically delivered its malware. They didn't even know it occurred. Approximately 6 months later, during a holiday, the Thursday midnight before the holiday began on that Friday, roughly speaking, they encrypted all their data that they could get a hold of. And then on their screen, they basically said, your data has been encrypted. We expect you to pay. And then they had to pay. It was multi-million-dollar ransom that actually turned into $1 million that had to be paid in Bitcoin. And then
Bitcoin.
Yeah. So
I didn't know.
yeah. So there's part of that, the beauty and the devilry of Bitcoin is the fact that it's an anonymous payment system.
Sure.
So from there, they had to go through a forensic accounting, a forensic cybersecurity assessment to make sure they got everything out of there. They also lost a lot of hardware because they just couldn't quite figure it out. We know this is impregnated, but we can't find it, so we can't keep it. So they went through a whole variety of expenses that ultimately cost them over $2 million. And the only saving grace was at the insistence of my partner, Peter, that they purchased cybersecurity insurance, which turned out to be a godsend. All those expenses and all those resources were simply made available to them from their insurer, who provided the cybersecurity insurance. So it was an experience that I think you'll find is pretty much average for what's going on out there. And given the size of their dealership, it was actually kind of on the small side in terms of actual outflow of cost.
Well, okay. So and again, I don't know, because I've never really talked to dealers about their cybersecurity. That's just not my IT. I'm not the IT person. But how many would you say actually have the cybersecurity insurance in place?
That's so approximately 5 years ago, we estimated that about 5% of dealerships had cybersecurity. Now today, it's actually in the last 5 years, it's gone to roughly 20%. But what we're finding is that a lot of the people that we contact are insisting that they're covered by their property and casualty insurance. But what we're seeing and what we've documented is that property and casualty insurers are walking away from their cybersecurity writers, basically creating exclusionary language that essentially says, yeah, we're not paying for that. And so what you have is this misconception at the general level that their P&C insurance or some other maybe D&O, directors and officers insurance, is going to protect them, and it's not. And so that original, $4 million Bitcoin ransom, the resources, the forensic resources necessary to fix all of that would have come out of their pocket, right? Had it not been for the insurance that was provided, that they purchased, frankly, by accident, or rather.
And they were very fortunate that they did, thank goodness. But I have to say, I know, and I'm not trying, I really am not. I'm just being as upfront based off of my experience out there. And, there's some dealers out there that kind of like, go over the line. You know what I mean? There's that gray line. You know what I mean? It's like, how close to that gray line can I go to? Can I cross over it a little bit? So they may not see the need in understanding that this is something, come heck or high water, you got to figure this out. This is not something you want to mess with, or you feel as if it's cost of business. Let me just write a check for it.
Yeah.
Because then you're talking about your provider maybe canceling you. I mean, how does all that work?
Yeah. So the in answer to your question, that lack of proactivity is going to be a lot more, have a much greater negative impact this time around from the regulatory enforcement standpoint, because it's much more about individual consumers who get hurt by these breaches, these data breaches, who then have the ability, legally speaking, to hire a lawyer and to essentially inject their costs and their lives for having their identity stolen and all of that onto the dealership themselves. So this is going to be almost enforcement by litigation versus enforcement by agency. And so if you've got enforcement by litigation, dealers may not care right now, but the moment that it becomes apparent that they were the cause or a part of this ability to release my individual information to some hacker who then resells it to the dark web, and then they turn it into a new identity, and then they go buy a car using my credit and everything else, then I have the wherewithal legally to go back to the dealer and say, hey, clearly they had all sorts of information that only you had. And then it's revealed. And then CDK's research, CDK Global Research indicates that 85% of the people that find out that that a given dealer has had a data breach, they don't want to do business with them. So there's multiple areas of negative impact that each and every one of these things provide and happen to the dealership. So, individual litigation, possibly FTC enforcement. And in the past, that was always a big if. So like you said, they would just sit there and, hope that their security through obscurity would be effective enough that when they did have to pay the fine, it would be the cost of doing business. Well, this is well beyond the cost of doing business. This is going to cost them their dealership. And then when you think about the liability that this represents, how does that impact the value of their dealership? And if let's say last year, last year, I want to say that there were 388 buy sells, which was the largest on record. Well, if there are 388 buy sells, that means there are over 1,000 dealerships in play, right? Maybe more. And so if you're one of those dealerships and you're thinking, how does my valuation suddenly get impacted by all of this? Well, it gets impacted terribly, because if I'm doing the due diligence on an acquisition, the last thing I want to see is a data breach that led to litigation and has FTC enforcement behind it. That right? So why would I want to be a part of that? Why would I want to acquire that mess? Unless they've got, you know, some incredible set of resources. But again, it's over. You're overcoming barriers as it is to sell your dealership to a PE or private equity organization or a large dealer group or whoever's got the money these days to buy this stuff. So when you go through that due diligence and you see this array of problems that you're about to buy, you're going to have to, you know, maybe lower the price a little bit, which impacts the overall value, which may hurt your children, because this is your legacy to your kids in some fashion. And so the impacts are, they're large, number one, out of the get-go, and they can impact not only you, the owner of the dealership, but your children and the people that you care about, because that's where you're trying to leave this to when you've worked so hard for the last 30, 40 years. And then suddenly you get hammered because you didn't take the time. And frankly, when you look at some of the research from NADA and the cost of what they're saying a good faith compliance effort and reach, you know, for with respect to the safeguards rules, and I can point to, you know, being literally 2 or 3 factors less, then it's a no-brainer to protect all of that, like you would, you know, with any valuable resource. Like you've got fire insurance on your home, you've got car insurance on your car. Why the heck would you not have cyber insurance to protect the infrastructure that makes you money every minute of every day? Tend to really focus on that area. But frankly, they are connected, right? They are connected in that sense that you want to have the business processes in place that not only deal with regulatory issues from the red flags rules, but also how that data is treated, right? So that person that you're trying to verify who they are, right? So let's say you do the OFAC, right? Office of Foreign Asset Control.
Right.
And then basically, sorry, I'm declining a phone call. So basically the Office of Foreign Asset Control, you're supposed to find out what's going on there. Well, that's a database, and that information is captured, and you got a third-party provider, and you got to wonder, okay, what's that third-party provider doing with that data after the fact? Again, that's where the safeguard rules come into play, but it's all a connected process across that entire relationship life cycle with that individual. And so with the safeguard rules and the protection of data, it all begins with one of the first requirements, and that is you gotta hire a compliance officer. And they're saying that you have to have a compliance officer. So that compliance officer then has the responsibility of assessing what the current processes are, how are those processes, what are the gaps in those processes, and then how do I fill those gaps in the processes that are part and parcel with the red flags rules, all the way into the safeguards of that data that you've captured with the requirements of the red flags rules. So
my understanding too on that is that individual that you're talking about as far as a compliance officer has to be trained.
Yes.
To be that compliance officer. So there's more to it than what's going on right now. And I bet you, I bet you there's not that many compliance officers in the dealership. I don't know.
Well,
they might have hired a compliance officer, maybe. I don't know. But outside. But then there's plenty that don't have a compliance officer.
Agreed, and a lot. But what we're seeing is sort of the beginning of that bell curve of activity associated with getting that one requirement in place. And that is, we're seeing compliance officers being assigned this particular duty on top of other duties.
Okay.
Right? So you've got 2 or 3 roles that individual's doing, and then on top of that, they've got to figure out this compliance piece. Well,
sure.
And then what I'm seeing also are part-time compliance officers that are spread across multiple dealership locations. So it's an attempt to at least try to comply with that particular piece of the safeguards rules. But I think at the end, it's going to come back to hurt them because they can't focus on the gaps and how to fill them. I think that's going to be a very big challenge.
I do too. I mean, I just, I know that maybe sometimes they, I try to tell GM, you can't have an F&I manager as he's probably not the right person to have as your compliance officer. Come on now. What are
Not
you
if
thinking? But how many?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I know we see that as well. And all I can think of is if I'm that F&I manager, I'm trying to think, how am I going to hit my numbers? And then on top of that, I've got to create a compliance program that somehow deals with, the red flags rules all the way through that. And I have to read through the stuff on the safeguards rules or sit through webinars like, Hudson Cook has put together and others like them. I mean, the plate is only so big. And if you keep piling stuff on, there's not going to be that level of compliance that one would regard as a good faith effort. And
yeah, I think that they have those platforms like Complete and things like that to help the dealer comply with that to some degree, that they actually have some sort of way to validate the
exactly. And it's a good faith compliance effort starts with a policy. Then it goes to a training, and then there's an assessment of that training to make sure that Jim Lawrence knows what that policy is all about. And then there's
if anything changes or something like that, if you had a breach or something or whatever, then it needs to be updated.
Exactly.
I mean, some things are coming back, but that's why you're here, because you certainly, this is what you do. This is, and I respect that. I try not being you. I'm not you, Jim. And I already told Eric, and I also told Patty, I'm not them either. I touch on it, but then when we get into some serious conversations, I'm like, okay, this is where the buck stops. I know who we can call, and we are going to call the experts. And that's where you're at, Jim. And you really help a dealer to really, do what they can to protect themselves. And I know that sensitive data is ideal in that it can quickly detect if there's any sort of breach going on, and maybe just quickly share how you do that.
Oh, sure. Thank you. It's a great question. So we begin with an initial assessment, and one of the things that we've done is we've put together a suite of tools that would let's just say are similar in concept to the types that black hat hackers would use to do a drive-by on a given website. So if you've got ABC Auto Group, for example, .com, we have a way to assess that particular URL, that website, for any particular weaknesses or gaps. And then we can generate a nice short with a lot of pretty pictures type of report that says, okay, you've got 10 medium problems, 2 high level problems that need to be addressed. And the other piece that's really nice about this is that this is something that you can consider it's like evidence that you can share with your own insurer, or of course with our strategic partners, that says, okay, it looks like you guys look really good. You've got very few, maybe low level types of issues that can be dealt with quickly. We'll give you a quote based on what we see on this preliminary assessment. But what we've generally found in well over 90% of the cases is that we need to go to another level of assessment. And that's a simple 10 question questionnaire that speaks to not only the cybersecurity elements to it, but also ransomware and phishing prevention and things of that sort. So it's real simple. We do that in a consultative manner, so we get a sense of what we hear. So for example, when we get answers like, I think so, but I'll have to get back to you, or I'm pretty sure we do that, once a quarter, but I'll have to get to, touch base with my HR manager. When they're equivocating and they don't know that they had taken a test or not, that indicates a significant challenge with respect to their compliance effort. And so from those two elements, we can put together a proposal based on the initial assessment and that questionnaire that allows us to at least speak to some of the gaps that we found at that very high level research. And all of that portion of it is free. so that they can essentially see, at least for themselves, where they sit as your average dealership out there, because we compare them to a bunch of other dealerships that our insurers have assessed by hundreds. And so we have a real clear kind of understanding where they reside.
So what I'm going to ask everyone to do, please, and in that chat, you just got to hit the chat. You got to hit pound, and you got to hit sensitive data. Hashtag sensitive data is what I want you to put in there. Hashtag sensitive data. And I want you to put your email address and your name. And here's what I think is that I'm going to see if I can encourage Jim to reach out to you via your email. And also maybe you guys can come up with a special since you have taken the time to attend this panel and also a part of the F&I Master Series Forum, the digital age. So hashtag sensitive data, email, and your name. How about it, Jim?
Yeah, that's actually a great idea. So that's sort of the level 1. Level 2 assessments, it does cost us because we have to bring engineering talent into the play. And we have this proprietary software that, again, we built and have been using for the last 14 years to assess DMS data and where it's at and how it's used and if it's encrypted or not. And we kind of know where the skeletons are buried. And so we see a lot of data in places you would never expect, like in the printing area for certain DMSs and things like that. So we're able to configure and update our software to continually find those little niches that data somehow ends up. And we've been told, I mean, expressly told that, yeah, don't bother. We don't save, like, for example, payment card industry data, you know, your personally identifiable information. And we insisted, and we went through the process, and we found 4,000 plus records that were unencrypted, readily available if somebody knew what they were doing. And that is well in excess of the thresholds that we're seeing, not only at the federal level, but at the state level as well. So those are significant problems. And in fact, when we look at the data from this research over 300 plus rooftops, 95% of these dealerships have liability causing data available to the software that we're having, and you know that the hackers are trying to figure this out. So it's something that we can provide at, let's say, 50% off, and it's normally, you know, depending on the number of rooftops, it can range anywhere from like $9.99 all the way up to $29.99. So we would figure out some way to allow some real leeway, some real percentage discounts.
There you go, for attending and being here with us at the F&I Master Series Forum, the digital age. And I got to tell you, sensitive data, Jim Lawrence, he is the bomb. He's amazing. And anyone could, I mean, I go to him every single time. I mean, if I don't understand something, I pick up the phone, and he's always readily available. So again, Jim, thank you for being available this time. I appreciate you. And anytime I can go ahead and send you some business, you know I will do it.
Wonderful.
Thank you again.
Well,
it's all for a good cause.
Oh yeah. Well, Becky, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you inviting me. It's wonderful to be a part of such an esteemed group of folks. I really, really have enjoyed this conversation.
Me too. And I'm sure everybody else did too. So thank you again. Thank you.
Certainly.
So, Michael, it is a pleasure to have you here with us at F&I Master Series Forum, the digital age. And, for our dealers and viewers, to get us started, if you wouldn't mind, share your background, how you got to where you are today.
Excellent. Well, first and foremost, thank you for your time, Rebecca, because I know we're always behind the eight ball when it comes to time. And it's a true blessing to be able to be part of your platform today. My name is Michael Bulnes. I'm the Value Shield National Sales Director of our product. And I myself, I did almost 18 years worth of retail down here locally in South Florida. I was born and raised in Miami. I'm a father of 4 children. And I got engulfed and, raveled up into the car business, right? I always like to say the car business is like Hotel California. Once you get in, it's very difficult to get out. And I was a testament to that. I grew very fast within the ranks. I basically held every single position you can in the retail world, from top sales executive to finance manager, assistant finance director, new car director, used car director, general sales manager, and even the general manager of a store. So ultimately, grew very fast within the ranks. I only worked at Southeast Toyota dealerships, very high volume, high retail, wild east of the car business, 9 a.m. to midnight advertised hours. Worked even on Christmas Day a couple times, which isn't a good thing, but that's just what the market predicates down here in South Florida. And I was very blessed to be part of that. The product value shield is something I was part of since an inception stage. So not only was I part of it as a conceptual idea development standpoint, but ultimately executed it at a very high level at the dealership that I was at, and ultimately was able to grow within the company. And basically we've done a very good job of creating an idea into something that's a true footprint into our business and a very viable tool. And that's what Value Shield is.
Well, that sounds like a pretty extensive automotive retail background. And again, thank you for being here and sharing some of your insights and feedback as to what's going on in the marketplace. And believe me when I tell you, I don't have to tell you, you and I both know historical events are taking place in our industry today. And with that said, how are you seeing, how is Value Shield seeing, the market playing out with this pre-owned business? Where is that going in the next year to 2 years? I mean, if there's anyone that can really talk through this, it should be you, Mike.
Definitely, Rebecca. Well, valuations are at an all-time high, right? Whether it's that new car vehicle, that pre-owned sale, and ultimately no one would have ever expected for this situation to happen, right? The definition of insanity is to do the same thing and expect a different result. And we're actually see that come to fruition in our car business, because dealerships are still working deals the same way they were 20 years ago. But now, instead of giving away a car at invoice and trying to make up all that money in the back end, they're getting all this front end profit. Mm-hmm. And, you and I have discussed previously that, the dealerships to their right are taking advantage of that supply and demand situation. And one thing we've done very well with our product Value Shield, and not to really get into that, but, it's basically protect dealerships' profit. Let's not today's gains be in vain. And going forward, how are we going to go ahead and assist that consumer? That valuation tool, like you said, cars right now, we're selling pre-owned vehicles, 2019, 2020 cars at MSRP prices of what they used to sell back in the day. And that's what they're getting now. Valuations, in my personal opinion, will probably stay like this until, that fleet market gets up to par. That used car, rent-a-car business is actually driving the market to where it's at, because as long as fleets are not supplied, that supply and demand chain, there's going to be a strain on it. And, how long will this last? Will it last another 12 months? Will it last another 18 months? It most likely won't last another 24 months. But like you said, where do we end with this type of valuation?
Well, what was really kind of interesting, what you said, and I'd like to kind of talk through that a little bit, because now dealers are making more profit back on the front end, right? And okay, and that's always a good thing, because that profit stays.
Correct.
As opposed to, let's talk about F&I. So because the dealer is maximizing their profit on the front end, does that mean that F&I is getting a hit, or where do you see that playing out?
Well, so, typically finance numbers tend to variate whenever the front is very heavy. But the reality of the nature is that, the higher front end profits are, typically your back end is going to, go along par with that. If you notice, a lot of these public companies, Group One, Penske, Sonic, they're reporting F&I numbers that they've never seen, PVR component numbers.
That's right.
So it truly is being hand in hand mirrored, because the customer's coming in and there's really no deviation of what's, it's an easy close to sale. It's not something you're not overcoming a lot of objections.
Mm-hmm.
With that being said, though, if we think about the products that have always hurt the finance department for chargebacks, are term products. Gap is the biggest offender of a term product, kind of like a one-trick pony, if you really think about it, because Gap only does one thing very well. It protects the consumer and it protects the lender. It leaves the dealership on the hook. And one thing the lenders are very smart in doing, and they've actually adjusted this as of maybe like a month and a half ago, they're allowing dealerships to sell retail Gap at a higher price now, but because they know that down the line, the reserves for Gap are going to probably be atrocious because of these valuations. So your Gap cost is going to increase. And, once again, what we've created is something that's going to not only benefit the dealership long-term wise, it's a retention tool, but also is definitely going to assist with the valuation of vehicles at a trade-in standpoint. Because
let's kind of talk through that a bit, if you don't mind. So Gap has always been the go-to product, right? I mean, as many stores that I've also been in, Mike, over, my career, it's like, okay, service contracting Gap, Becky, that's what I got. And I'm like, okay, but there's more to it than that. But right. So they're always going for the Gap. I mean, I get it. It's a no-brainer, but now you help me out here, because I don't have the statistics like you do, but are there more accidents happening versus, and then we can talk through how that creates a more diminished value on the vehicle, if you would, and then difference between a total loss. What is that?
Yeah. So, let's just use 100 as a number, right?
Okay.
Out of 100 accidents in the United States, less than 7 are total losses, which is astonishing when you really think about that.
It is.
93
really
accidents are just that, an accident, and the other 7 are total losses. Yet Gap is that either number 1 or number 2 product we sell in all our stores. And if we were to tell a customer that, hey, Gap's a great product, you have less than a 7% chance of utilizing it, what's going to happen to our Gap sales? They would plummet, right? And also, when it comes to dealer usage, if we put our hands in the dealership world, right, which I know that, and I'm immersed in that world extremely well. Whenever you do a Gap claim, it's sometimes very difficult and arduous. It creates a CIT issue because you're spotting another car.
Are we doing Gap claims in the dealership anymore? Because I think a lot of the lenders are changing that up, where they are actually refunding that difference to the customer.
Yeah, the cancellation is going to always occur. But I'm saying, if you do a Gap claim, like if you try to do a claim, it's going to take a little time.
Gotcha.
And also what you just said about Gap, it's, usually we're selling vehicle service contracts. We're making 2 points on rate, or 1.5, whatever they allow us to, and we're selling Gap. Those are the 3 things that we sell a lot of.
That's right.
But they're term policies. Term policies usually leave a dealership exposed because most people don't keep their car for term. Our product is a diminished value product. And, when we talk about that term diminished value, sometimes dealerships, it's either hit or miss. They either understand it automatically, or they're a little convoluted about what diminished value truly is. But if we think about what has inundated our market now for over 2 decades, Carfax, I don't like to even date myself, but I remember when those first Carfax reps used to come to my store, and my used car manager used to kick them out of the store laughing, saying, hey, we're never going to give the history of our pre-owned car to anybody, right? And then, Carfax did something very smart. They aligned themselves with eBay Motors. eBay Motors became that first e-commerce of cars, and they said, we're going to give you the history of this car for free. And then Carfax became a staple in our industry. But what did we do as car dealerships? If we're going to create something that's going to assist our customers, we have to also gain for us. So not only are we going to evaluate the cars that we're selling, but the ones that are coming in as a trade-in, we're going to go ahead and use this tool to make that car worth even less, because an accident's always going to decrease the value of a car. So in essence, we are basically the cure for that Carfax, because we're going to go ahead and always pay the dealership up to that average book, allowing that customer to be retained And now the dealership's profit is not in vain. They're always going to be able to give more money for the consumer. That diminished value is basically lost, and everyone has won. So just like I tell everyone, if you sell a product at a 7% usage like Gap, imagine what you can do with a product that has a 93% usage like Value Shield that addresses an accident as opposed to a total loss. And it's like a total protection plan.
So, okay, so you're in a lot of the Southeast Toyota stores. Did I hear you say that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. And so they really, they have embraced the Value Shield and how it can really help to impact dealers. And if in the event, obviously, if the customer's coming in on trade-in, and especially, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years from now, and they happen to have an accident that had appeared on the Carfax, which is going to reduce the value of their vehicle. And their vehicle's already reduced in value because of the marketplace.
Correct. Yeah.
So it's almost getting...
It's like a double whammy, exactly what you're saying.
The double whammy.
Yeah. If today we sell a vehicle at these huge valuations, especially on the pre-owned sector, right? And, let's say 24 to 36 months from today, that consumer is trying to trade out of that car and had a wreck. How, as a dealership, are we going to be able to get that consumer to come back to us? What are we going to be able to do if the valuation was over here when we sold the car and now it's down here because our market is here? And especially with an accident, it's going to be even lower. Well, at least our product will give that dealership 10,000 reasons to retain that customer and ensure that transaction to happen. Customer satisfaction, dealer retention, overall win for all three parties, right? So it's a win-win for everyone. And ultimately, it's a good synergy. One thing I always tell everyone when we talk about, just F&I products in general, you've been doing this for a very long time, so have I. The mindset of a F&I manager, it's sort of like that Rain Man-like mentality. Once they're used to pitching products a certain way, they're not going to deviate or change from that. So one thing I always tell everyone is, since Gap is a staple in our industry, everyone knows about it. You can literally change your word track by one word. Offer your customer Gap Wrap, Gap for a total loss, Value Shield for an accident, and now your customer is 100% protected. And it's a lot better to be 100% protected than 7% of the times.
Well, here's the thing. I just think it's important that dealers wrap their head around the products that most benefit the customer, and for a greater impact for the customer and for the dealer. And anytime, because we talking about this, during this event, reoccurring in business, repeat business, getting the customer back in the dealership, and just how important that is. It's not just that micro moment of the menu presentation, right?
You're spot on. You're spot on. Today's sale has to be transcending. There's a lot of things that we do through a BDC standpoint to retain our customers, right? In all dealerships, we're either sending out that 3-month notification for service or that 6-month notification for service. But ultimately, if we talk about ROI, return on investment of a customer, that's truly the bread and butter of any very good dealership. It's not, you don't want it to be a standalone sale. It's just like in the restaurant business. Who keeps that alive? It's your repeat customers. It's not your daily onesies and twosies that are going to be coming by. And we have to do a better job at the dealership level to offer products that truly make sense and retain our customers to come back to us. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, that is really the ticket, is really the embracing customer experience, repeat business. And, obviously the dealer doesn't want to take a hit on that difference time of trade-in and trying to flip that customer out and lose the profit either. It just makes sense that we have this available to meet customer needs and dealership needs. And it goes, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'm learning more all the time myself, but you have 2 offerings, something about there is something about, I don't know, dealer can do a giveaway almost, and then they upsell it, if I'm not mistaken, in the F&I office. And then you've got a $5,000 benefit or a $10,000 benefit. So
that is correct. Yes. So
Okay.
we have an either up to $5,000 benefit or an up to $10,000 benefit. And as a caveat, as a why buy here differentiator in our market space, we offer a giveaway to the consumer as a complimentary benefit for 1 year. The great advantage to that, it's not your typical preload. I know that's like a dirty word for some like old school general managers that don't want to impact their cost on the car for anything. But ultimately, this product, what it does, it's used for advertising tool. You're going to offer your customer accident forgiveness at the dealership level, and it's only going to impact the vehicle in the event that a consumer goes through finance and doesn't upgrade to a $5,000 or $10,000 benefit. Also, the great part of the product is this is not a product that can only be sold on a finance deal. It can be sold on a cash deal because now it protects the customer's value of their money, which is the most important thing. It can be sold on a lease, and it can be sold on a finance deal. So it's definitely not a one-trick pony like a Gap product, but it's a very good complement to Gap on a finance deal, and it can be sold on a cash, lease, pre-owned, or finance new. There's no exclusionaries to what we can and cannot be sold on.
So there's a lot of lenders already that have approved it. And I know that Southeast Toyota Financial has also approved it as well. So probably another good reason why you've been so successful here.
Yeah, we've had a very good, obviously, relationship with Southeast Toyota, and they do back end approve the product, which is why we've had a good footprint into that demographic of stores between the state of North Carolina and Florida. Honda Financial nationwide, Nissan, Infinity, GM Financial. So we have some of the big lenders back end approved us. But like I tell everyone else, Rebecca, we do a good job. And when I say we, I consider myself in that fraternity of the car business. We do a good job of selling anything that's on our pay plan, right? Show me my pay plan. It'll tell you my job description, basically.
We talked about that too.
And when we talk about, what truly makes sense for a consumer and customer benefit, that's where we have to weigh it out. Is a paint and fab product going to retain your customer like a diminished value product that's going to bring them back to the store? So even though this product can be put in the front on some deals for some lenders, it just makes sense for the customer. And I think that's truly the differentiator of any good product, is because it's customer centric first and dealer centric second. And it truly involves all two parties as a 360 approach to business, which very few products are able to do. And it addresses valuations, which is where we're at right now. And that is really why we've grown so much as a company, because dealerships that are on the forward-thinking side of things are saying to themselves, hey, let's not let today's profit be in vain, because if that customer does have an accident, which is a lot more likelihood than a total loss, how are we going to engage into coming back? Well, Value Shield will offer them those 10,000 reasons to come back to that store as a retention tool.
Well, you know what? I tell you, it was such a pleasure. I'm so glad again that you were able to be here on the F&I Master Series Forum, the digital age. And here's the deal. In the background, you may see Atlanta. It is. Trust me when I tell you. And I actually had 2 roundtables. I had one in Atlanta and then one in Baltimore at the Inner Harbor. Well, come the fall, my goal is to go back to Atlanta, Georgia, and we're going back to the Marriott in Alpharetta, which was fantastic, fabulous. And it really, truly is. So here's the thing. I'm talking to you and Anthony. And so you're going to be there. You're going to bring one of your, dealership groups, whatever, to also talk through this. And I just think it's going to be terrific, fantastic. We're also going to have an online event again in the summer, and hopefully you'll be able to be there for that as well. So,
Rebecca, we appreciate being part of the digital series, and anything you need from us, keep us at hand, and we definitely will assist and facilitate. Thank you.
I absolutely will. And thank you again for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Many blessings. Have a great day.
You too. Tom Kline, welcome. It's so glad to have you here at the F&I Master Series Forum, the digital age. And I got to tell you, you've had some technical difficulties being in Florida. So I'm just telling you guys, hey, if Tom is in and out, he's just having some technical difficulties. But okay, to get this started, I share your background and what you've been doing so everyone has a better idea what you do.
A better vantage point, right?
Sure.
Well, thanks for having me, Becky. It's great to be here. I am Tom Kline. So my family started in the car business back in 1925. So I am a third generation car guy. Actually, my family's been in the business almost 100 years, and the country is only, 250 years old. So 40% of the age of the country is how long we've been in the car business. So I was a dealership owner for 30 years, and we sold our stores in December of 2019. And I started my consulting business right after that. And I focus on risk mitigation for dealers. So I try to help a dealer make sure the money they make is the money they keep. And I keep everybody out of the dealer's pocket. And that involves compliance. It involves risk transference. So what can we do to either have the insurance company pick up a claim, or can we put a policy or a procedure in place to pick up a claim? And then dispute resolution. So that's what I call kind of the three legs of the stool, which is compliance, risk transference, and dispute resolution.
Well, I bet that keeps you pretty busy with your dealers. I must say, especially, with these updates going on with the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, the FTC Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act. Now, we've had some speakers on, especially Hudson and Cook, as well as James Lawrence, and they're talking about some of these updates. And frankly, especially with dealers and making sure that they're protecting that data from any kind of malware, and that sometimes some of these dealers really need to check their insurance policies because they think they have this coverage and, through PNC or other coverages. So, and then they find out that they don't. Can you kind of go into that for me?
Sure. So a lot of dealers, you'd be surprised to learn, Becky, they don't have any cyber coverage.
Really?
And that is a problem. Anecdotally, I know of a group, and I've confirmed it actually, originally heard it as a rumor, but recently confirmed it. They were ransomware for $7 million. So somebody took control of their systems, locked them out. They couldn't transact business. I don't know whether they had cyber insurance or not, but it was a $7 million claim, so I understand.
Well, James did mention that, yes, and I know we had that conversation, and I know that happened, and they were lucky that they actually did have that cyber insurance, but he said it's few and far between that actually do.
Yeah, and that's true. So some garage packages, so the main insurance package that you have that protects the dealership from liability, some garage packages throw in $250,000, but it's very insufficient in terms of what dealerships would need if they have a problem. That $250,000 generally will not cover ransomware. It's generally for expenses. It's kind of a very light version. And these insurance companies since January 1st have really gotten tough on what they're going to do with dealers. And as an example, I have a client who's with CDK. He has his email with CDK, and the insurance companies will not renew his cyber coverage because CDK, as of this date, does not have multi-factor authentication in place for their email. And as a result of that, we're looking for coverage right now because he obviously does not control CDK. You'd think a company that big, and I'm not trying to bash CDK, but I'm amazed that they don't have multi-factor authentication as a part of their email. But they don't, and as a result, this dealer's having trouble renewing their cyber coverage. So this is all, the MFA or the multi-factor authentication is part of the new Gramm-Leach-Bliley regulations, which dealers have to comply with by December the 9th of this year, December the 9th of 2022. And this is one of the pieces that they're going to have to pay attention to.
So, we talk about some of that, dealers, and we know some, well, I had mentioned back, I think it was 2005, 2015. I don't know what year, 2015, red flag rolling. When did that come out?
Oh gosh, I think that's been out since, it might have even been the late 90s.
It's about 2005. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
A while.
It's been a while. So I remember when that first came out, and I remember how we were stumbling all over the place, and while we were trying to implement these safeguard rulings, and of course also red flag, and I don't think we were doing that great of a job with that whole idea. And
Sure.
making sure that, again, we implemented a compliance officer and what our duties and responsibilities were with that whole piece. So dealers I can't speak for every dealer, but I do know that some really weren't kind of
Paying attention.
what they were supposed to be doing. So I'm wondering here, are they going to be paying attention to these new updates?
Well, I mean, I was at a dealership group last week and went into their computer system just to check on the red flags rule. And there were plenty of X's where the F&I manager just blew right by it and to disclose the customer anyway. So for anyone who's watching and or listening, make sure you go back and you check to make sure that the red flag rule is being adhered to. And in the compliance world, Becky, as you well know, unless you're checking it, you don't know what's going on.
Well, I think it's important that we are doing our proper checks and balances. And some of this is not something that you can ignore. That, if there is a breach, from what I understand, and it's 1,000 more individuals, consumers that have been affected by that breach, that is something that has to be reported to FTC. And
right.
This is right.
Right. Well, each of the dealerships is supposed to have a written data breach plan and what they would do in the specific steps of how they'd handle if they have a data breach. And again, that's something I find that a lot of dealerships, if you ask them for their data breach response plan, they kind of look at you and, I think it's over here somewhere, or that kind of thing. So it should really be the data breach response plan. That's something should be in the employee guidebook, and everybody should sign off on it, and everybody should know about it, and it should be very public, and everybody know what to do, so that if something happens, everybody knows to, go see whoever it is, because they're the ones handling it, and then they go through their step-by-step playbook.
It's really going to be interesting how this whole thing takes off with regard to these updates and what dealers are going to have to put in place. And, you also mentioned, there's a lot of mergers and acquisitions going on, as you well know, historical amounts. And if, in fact, dealers aren't paying attention to make sure that they have their ducks in a row, that they're applying to compliance and regulation, that could possibly mean that they may not get the value that they were hoping for their stores. Would you talk a little bit through this and how that whole thing works?
Sure. I mean, compliance, if you don't have a compliance program in place and a regulator or a lawyer, either one, come after the dealer, then it's going to be a situation where there's going to be willful noncompliance. And when there's willful noncompliance, the checks get very big. I've always said that, and when I say very big, I mean 6 figures. I mean, I know of multiple situations where regulators go in and it's 6 figures. However, if they come in and you say, here's all my compliance material, and here's my compliance manager, and here's what we do routinely, and here's the information on this, and here's the information on that, then you say, look, yes, we messed up with Mrs. McGillicuddy over here, and we'll get Mrs. McGillicuddy straight, but you can't say that we're being willfully non-compliant because we have all these procedures, and here's our employee guidebook, and here's our data breach response plan, and here's our compliance management system, and all those things that are required by the FTC and by all the rules and regulations because we're so highly regulated. So it's a matter of a couple $1,000s or a couple $100,000.
I mean, that's what I understand. I mean, dealers would tell me, it would always be like, okay, well, if we have a problem, we'll just write that off as doing business, right? Cost of doing business. And now the cost of doing business is really going sky high. I mean, this is like, millions of dollars. And I don't know. I know these guys are making a bazillion dollars right now, but I don't think I'd want to go ahead and give that up anytime soon just because I can't seem to get my head wrapped around the updates on the Graham-Leach-Bliley Act and making sure that we have our policy and procedures in place to assure that we're doing what we need to do to protect ourselves and the consumer, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is complicated, and there's no one solution that I've seen yet that anybody said, here it is, and it's the total solution. You've got companies for example, that will send out contracts to your vendors to have them sign to make sure that your data between your website and any of your marketing companies is encrypted, and they sign and they agree to it. Well, that's certainly part of it. You have to have a written policy, and there's a software program that specifically does, you click the box and click the box and click the box, and ta-da, you have a policy. But then there's the whole tech side of it that has nothing to do with that, where you have to have endpoint detection, and you have to have the right antivirus, and you have to have a qualified individual who is supposed to be handling your tech. And the definition of a qualified individual, I haven't memorized it, but it's basically somebody who has a computer science degree. Like, I'm not a qualified individual. I'm a business consultant, but I couldn't pass as a qualified individual based on the rules and regulations and what they say. So you've got all these disparate pockets that the dealers are going to have to comply with, and this is not going to be one of those where somebody installs a software solution and says, you're good, don't worry about anything else. That's not how this is going to work. It might work that way with some other things, but not here.
Yeah, I know what you mean by that. Every time I turn around, we got this. Don't even worry about it. We're good. Forget about it. That's why I'm saying, when this whole red flag thing came up, it was like, everybody's like, oh my gosh, we got to get into the stores. We got to just make sure that these dealers are protected. And of course, then they came up with software program. Next thing you know, we're good to go. We got an OFAC pull, and, now we're happy. But then it really wasn't a deep dive as it should be. I mean, I know what actually should be happening in those stores that certainly really isn't happening, but that's beside the point. So I said, okay, no harm. So, okay, but now with this whole update, what does that exactly mean? And then it could mean if in the event, that customer has been violated, and then we sold, or the dealer happened to sell a car to a customer where their credit or identity has been breached.
Right.
Then there's UDAP laws and that sort of thing that go into play.
Right. I mean, think about if the dealership has to buy credit monitoring for 20,000 people, right? What is it? Is it $100 per person or something?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's not cheap. That's for darn sure. I mean, who would want to go do that? But
so, I mean, if there's a breach, that may be part of the settlement, and if you don't have insurance that would respond to that and perhaps provide that as part of the remediation, then 20,000 times 100 is $200,000, and that's just for the credit monitoring, which is kind of and again, it probably is a lot less than $100. I don't know how much it is. I haven't checked, but it's a lot of money when you in 20,000, by the way. Part of the regulations say that you're only supposed to keep the data that you need for business purposes. Mm-hmm. And that means that 20-year-old service ROs and having those customers sitting in your CRM or on your DMS, you're supposed to have a data retention policy and get rid of that data if you're not using it. So the FTC is actually kind of shifting, and what they're saying now is data is a liability, and they want the dealerships to think of it as a liability. So 20,000 names, as you and I both know, is nothing in terms of what's actually in their database. And that data retention policy is certainly part of the, one of those other pieces that the dealers are going to have to worry about and make sure that it's taken care of.
Well, I'll tell you right now, coming from a dealer who has been in the car business for a very long period of time. I remember Kline when I was growing up in Maryland. I'm from Baltimore. And so we had a chance to get together. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, talk about a small world, Kline. I remember Kline Automotive. And it is certainly a pleasure, Tom, to have you here on the F&I Master Series, The Digital Age.
Thanks so much for having me, Becky.
Hi guys, here we are, and it is certainly a pleasure to bring you on today to the F&I Master Series Forum, The Digital Age. And I have Denis with us, and he's the Sales and F&I Director. Tully, he is the Fixed Ops Director. So I'm, again, pleased that we were able to get you on. And here's what I want to do. I want you to introduce yourself to everyone. And if you wouldn't mind, share your background. What do you do at the dealership, just to kind of get things going? So, Denis, if you wouldn't mind, have at it. How long have you been at the dealership? What's your background all about?
All right. Well, my name's Denis Gingrich. I'm the Sales and Finance Director here at the Niello company. I've been here just over 2 years. Prior to that, I had an 8-year probationary period as a vendor with an outside F&I products and services provider. And, the Niello company felt I might have been a fit, and they took me under their wing. But, I started in the business professionally back in 1997, and I know nothing but the retail automotive side of things. Never worked on the fixed side. Actually, I just learned how to spell RO yesterday, but all things sales and finance, that's my background. Really pleased to be here on the show with you, Becky and Tully, and looking forward to spending some time together.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for sharing your background. How about you, Tully? Everybody should know who you are.
I don't know about that, but Tully Williams from the Niello company. Just one thing here. Niello's been in business 100 years last year, so we're super excited. That's a big wow right there.
Super. Happy anniversary. Absolutely.
No, it's really, really cool.
I mean, so awesome. Perfect.
So Tully Williams, been in the business probably all my life, been in the fixed ops side, been at the Niello company over 3 years. And the best part of this whole thing is I share an office with the gentleman on the screen. So here we go. When we look at the Niello company, we have fixed and variable in the same office. We have it dialed in, Becky.
Well, it's kind of very impressive to see that, because I don't really see that very often, where you actually are dialed in and working together. So how was it before? Tell me what was going on in your life before all that happened, Tully.
Well, the typical thing. You're fighting the F&I. We have an outside provider. They don't care, right? All they're trying to do is get claims declined. And I have to try to remind F&I people and remind sales department, we're truly in the repeat and referral business. And what does F&I do best for us? Drives repeat and referral business to get them back in the service department. So we lock them in, make them happy, and then they tell their friends and family and themselves to buy the next automobile. So I think that if you don't have that connection right, you're not going to have that great success. So Denis came on board. We got some great products that we all agree that were good. We went out there and sold them to our service advisors and F&I managers, and kaboom, what do we got? Better customer service. We don't have F&I problems anymore. Are they going to cover it? Oh my God, it's got an extra size wheel on it. The truck is purple. That's not covered. Poof, all gone. And we have our day-to-day issues, but really the structure of it, solid as a rock. Denis?
No, and I think that's really key. Having grown up mostly in the F&I department, the biggest fear of a finance manager when they're representing a product maybe they don't have the utmost confidence in is when the rubber meets the road at claims time. We make these promises in the office, which really our friends in service have to deliver upon. When they go back to the service department, if the customer doesn't have that solid claims experience, they come marching right back to the F&I department. And that's just not a good feeling for, just on a human level, throw the professional side out of things. When we sell something, we really are selling a promise, a commitment to a better experience. And if that doesn't happen back in the service department, it just doesn't feel good, inside. So when we went through making some changes into our F&I offering, it was just really important that the coverage was on the customer side, and priced in a way where we can pay service, for their hard work and effort. So we get that good experience. And that way, when they come in, they've got a good experience in service. And if they're ready to move on to a new car, they're ready to do it all over again and just stay in that circle of life we enjoy here at the Niello company.
So I think that's a terrific, awesome story because growing up in the business, and I got to tell you, I've had and worked with some of the best in the industry. And it was always about that relationship, with my service manager, my service director. And his always thing was, let me tell you something. If you sell a service contract, tell customer it's going to cover everything. And I know you love this. I know you love this term, Tully, bumper to bumper. And that policy, that customer comes in to my service department and that coverage doesn't cover that customer, you're taking care of it. I'll never forget that as long as I live. And I'm like, you know what? That will never, ever, will it ever happen because I know what it's like to tell someone you have coverage or you have this complete comprehensive coverage. And then you're in the service department and then you find out, well, not exactly. You might have the silver coverage, but you don't have the comprehensive coverage. And that can just knock it out. You talk about bad relationship with your service director and the customer. So for me, it was like, I just want to make sure that you absolutely know without a doubt, this is what this, maybe he just scared the heck out of me. I don't know, Tully.
So I think that you're spot on because I think the problem happens is that it starts at the top. It starts with a dealer principle. Do we believe in repeat and referral business? Do we believe in the culture that we're customer centric? Do we believe that if we take care of customers, they'll come back in the service drive? The Niello family has been doing this for 100 years, and the answer is absolutely yes. So now when you bring Denis on, and when we look at programs, we're not selling the F- program. We're selling only A+ programs. We're only covering the transmission that never breaks program. We're covering the whole entire car. And I think that's the mindset. So when the car comes in and say, I have a service contract, did you buy it from the Niellos? Absolutely. Boom, bring it on in. And guess what? Smiles on faces. Yep. People are happy. And we know what's covered and not covered, but we are selling the best coverage. That's what really turned the table. Whereas when your F&I people are selling the A's and B's, well, it doesn't cover the airbag, or it doesn't cover this module, it doesn't cover the window. Those are things that drive customers insane, which means we're not in the repeat and referral business. Denis?
No, I think he's absolutely right, and it is a culture. We've made some tremendous strides over the past 2 years. We're blessed to work with an amazing group of F&I professionals that truly get repeat and referral business. They know if they make that commitment to the customer that something's going to be covered, it's going to be covered. So they're selling with confidence. So we really had a tremendous lift in our overall F&I PVR. And when they do go back to service, our service advisors, they know. If a customer comes in with a challenge, it's a quick, easy phone call. The finance manager looks good, the salesperson looks good, the service advisor looks good. And, when the whole group looks good and they're feeling good, it's just that great, happy vibe in the showroom floor. And that's where people want to be when they do business. They want to do business with people that are happy and eager to serve. And I think if we really create a culture of doing what's right for the customer, instead of doing what makes us maybe a little bit more money at the time, but doing what's right for them in the long term, the profits will follow and repeat and referral business in the here and the now and the future.
Well, it seems to me, or from what I can tell from what you're saying, you have a philosophy, a culture in place that is consistent. And it's consistent with the products that you're presenting to the customer 100% of the products, 100% of the time, which obviously we know if a customer is taking advantage of any of one of the products that you have decided to serve up based on your customer base, makes sense to because that by the customer taking advantage of those products is going to get the customer back into service, which means we're going to retain more business, right? So that being said, you're offering, for the most part, the very best policy on every single customer going out, period. Did I hear that correct?
Yeah, that's what we offer. For two reasons. On a selfish reason, I'm lazy. I don't want to deal with problems from yesterday. So if I do the right thing up front, I don't have to work as hard later. That's number one. It's just, from a selfish standpoint, that's the motivation. But we need to keep our sales and finance people, working in the here and now, because that's the car business. If we're doing everything right here and now, we can stay focused instead of cleaning up yesterday's problems from, cutting corners or doing the wrong thing. So, that's just, that's what I believe. And that's, I really honestly believe that's what our team believes. And they're happy to work here because they know they can do the right thing. And as long as they're doing the right thing, they can remain gainfully employed here at the Niello company and be compensated very fairly for their hard work and effort in delivering that great experience.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So let me ask you this. You think that you lose any, kind of putting you on the spot here. Do you feel that you're losing any kind of service contract penetration by, your stick-to-itiveness to offer the very best service contract to every single customer?
So I'm going to jump in on that. I say yes, but here's the reason why.
Okay.
Would we want to sell a less contract to somebody and make them upset, or make sure we sell the right contract and make sure that they're completely 100% satisfied when they come in the driveway? I think that that's not worth it. I'd rather not sell the contract, have my penetration go in. Now, I'm sure Dennis has something to think about it, but think about this. If customers are happy in the service drive, they will come back and buy another one. Dennis?
No, I think he's right. Obviously, there's certain circumstances. Maybe we're dealing with some challenge credit. We've got a limited callback from the bank. And, I really lean into the team like, hey, I want you to sell the highest level of coverage available for that customer at the time of sale. If we're dealing with that challenge credit, and maybe we've got a very limited amount for a service contract. And, but I would rather make, a little something up front and sell them better coverage than have a big hit and then heat down the road for Tully and his team to deal with. Because, hey, let's say it is a challenge credit and maybe it's a little bit shorter deal. They're getting the penetration, but also that customer, if they make those payments, maybe they're buying something that's just not our core brand, but hell, in 2 years, they could be, future 800 scores and they're in one of our dealerships buying a brand new Porsche because they hit it big. So I think doing things right now pays huge dividends later. And, Tully likes to say, repeat and referral business. And that's an easier way to do business.
I really like the attitude. That's what I have been trained growing up in the business as well. And if we treat the customer the right way, that they're going to come back. And the last thing we want to do is have a customer, like I said earlier, showing up in service and then finding out that they don't have the coverage to go ahead and take care of the claim. And you want to talk about an upset customer walking out and probably you're never going to see again. So that being said, after sale, like sometimes, and I don't know if you know Steve Apicella or not, but he is, he's a very interesting, I'll tell you, I agree with him, because here again, sometimes you have that menu presentation, that micro moment menu presentation. And there could be some things that, I don't know, maybe a customer says, no, I'm not going to take advantage of the product. I feel like whatever. There's too much information coming at me at all one time. I know that happens even in the best situations. And darn if that customer, I don't know what happens, but it's 3 weeks later, somebody else contacts them, and darn if they didn't buy a service contract or a product elsewhere. So what are you guys doing to get back in front of the customer, to revisit the product with the customer that didn't take it at time of delivery? How does that work for you?
I think that's a great question. I'll go out and say, hey, are we doing an incredible job following out with people that did not take advantage of the products at time of sale? No, I couldn't say that in good conscience. But I think one thing we are doing to fight that fight is, we've really integrated, the presentation of F&I products earlier into the sales transaction. We have our sales teams, they're trained, they know about the products, they're compensated on them. And I think if you've read anything over the past several years as it relates to F&I performance, customers want to buy these products. They just want to know more about them sooner so they can make a decision and not feel rushed. So I think, I think we're doing a better job capturing more and more upfront. It's evident in our products per customer. They continue to climb, that we get that early introduction. We make sure our salespeople are informed enough to plant the seeds, and the customers feel comfortable making a decision when they're in front of our F&I managers. In terms of follow-up, we've tried tackling it on the service drive, and there's a number of software platforms, but I think that's next level for us is, how do we captivate that or capture that audience? Because there's a million phone houses, hey, I'm calling you about your extended warranty, and they would have stopped if they weren't having success. So, that's kind of the next frontier, I think, for us, where we've got some opportunity.
Yeah, I for me, it was always about my pay plan. I won't kid you. And I know, the last thing dealers want me talking about are pay plans, but I got to tell you, it was. And for me, it was, if I could just go ahead and get that service contract and I add that to my penetration, let me tell you, because my pay plan, I don't know, dealers were always stuck on this service contract penetration. And so the combination of profit earned plus my service contract penetration, I'm like, oh, I'm going to figure this one out. And, so building that relationship with service was really important for me, because again, if I knew that there was a customer coming in that might be ready, coming right out of that manufacturer's warranty 3 or 36, I'm like, hey, I'm all over it. Get me involved. Do whatever you have to do. I'll do whatever I have to do to follow up. So things like that are, I think, important. But the other is, I know some of the dealers offer some sort of a payment plan opportunity. There's SPP, there's Dignify, there's Line 5 options that might be available. Is that something that you offer to your customer after delivery or even during delivery?
Yeah, that is a tool our finance managers leverage. We have oftentimes, maybe we do have a tight, call up front. We do a handful of service payment plans, on the regular. I think, could we do a better job? Absolutely. Is it something that's available, when our customers are in the drive, like, hey, I'm almost out of factory warranty. I need to keep this thing. There's not a good replacement vehicle. We get a little bit of that. Our advisors are introducing them to our F&I managers to get the coverage, but it's, we're stumbling into them, I think, in spite of ourselves. And I think, there's always an opportunity. I don't think we're unique in this, where,
Nope,
you know, a little bit more direct effort, you know, would definitely pay some dividends and keep the customer in the happy camp, protected, and Tully and his team taking care of them.
I want to add to that. I think that is that if you truly believe in the product, whereas if you look at if our service advisors believe in the products, that means when they come back in, right, to buy something, say after the sale, they're confident in them, because you want the service advisor to say, you know what, you want to buy that contract. You didn't buy the key. My God, one key and you've already paid for it. Or I know that you really are anal about your wheels. Why didn't you buy the wheel coverage, right? Because the service advisors are just as educated as our sales consultants and our F&I clients. So when we roll out these products, Denis and I went to all the stores and we educated our service advisors about the products and what the value is, right? And some of them in service are great values. Key, wheel, right? Term. These things are great products for customers that want to keep their car pretty. I mean, it's the coolest thing since sliced bread. So education in the driveway, service advisors believing in the products helps that after sale.
Well, I think so as well. And so does knowledge-based help, especially training up our service. And here's that relationship. I mean, can you imagine a finance director or even finance managers having the ability to get to service and work with and train up service on product knowledge? I mean, that is kind of unheard of. You know, it just is. It's like, wait a minute, what are you doing? You're going to train my service people?
But you got to break the mold, right? You got to break the mold. That's the reason why Denis and I sharing an office breaks the mold. There is no barrier like that. There is no barrier.
But it makes such a serious impact. Now, I'm just going to say something here, and I talk about this a bit, and Ted Ings knows a little bit about this story. He was there when it was happening, right? He didn't know what to say. So I got invited to a talk show, and I will tell you that a dealer advocate, along with another product provider of sorts, and I got slammed because I got set up is what I got. So I really want to know the truth. I'm like, so I decide I'm going to do it. And the conversation was on training salespeople on product knowledge. And I'm all for it. And I'm like, sure, why not? I want them to know. I want them to be able to endorse the product, and they should. It's like, could you imagine, because the sales associate not knowing anything about a tire and wheel or a service contract, and that they're like, well, you have a 3-year, 36,000 mile comprehensive coverage. Why do you don't need that?
No, that doesn't work. I really believe, growing up in the auto industry, my dad grew up in it, and, we've all heard, the less you know, the better off you are. Well, that is just such a load of garbage. I can't believe it. We can't treat our people like mushrooms. We can't put them in a dark room with a bunch of crap and hope they'll grow. It doesn't work with people. It works for mushrooms, but not people. They need knowledge. All of the, especially today's employees, they want to grow, and, growth means a lot of things to, different people. It could be, I want my W-2 to grow. Yeah, we all want that, but people want advancement. People want to get a sense of fulfillment. And if we're getting our sales professionals, that quite frankly, most of them are all aspiring to be, a sales manager, a finance manager. And the better we get them equipped to step up, and the more they know, and we help grow them, the job gets easier for everybody. They're easier to manage. It's just a way better way to go. And, if there's any dealers that are still out there that are still subscribing to the less the better off you are. I mean, it's the 21st century now, right? We got to get with it.
Amen. Because here I am, and I was so surprised on how many in that show really felt that less is more. And just like you said, if you go ahead and train these guys up, they're going to go ahead and give up the farm. I mean, that's their mindset. And I'm like, well, if you don't train them up, they're going to give up the farm, because they don't see the benefit. What's the benefit? What's in it for me? Why do I care?
Well, I've been a salesperson, and, I had F&I managers that I liked that, genuinely I felt took an interest in me and my development, and, understood what I wanted to do for my future. And then I've had the complete opposite. And, if the complete opposite maybe got a hold of my deal, I'm not helping that guy out or that gal out. Everything that guy talks to you, just say no and you'll be out of here in 5 minutes, if you're not taking investment. But I think if we invest in our people and their future, and that just training them up, whether it be on a tire and wheel, whatever, just anything that relates to this industry, and we train them in a way that will help them grow, that also helps us, as sales managers, as finance managers, the sky's the limit. We recently updated our compensation plan, to where our sales staff, they got a piece of that pie on everything. And whether they sell it up front or whether they don't, they get a little taste. And you know what we found? Nobody's in a hurry to leave our dealership anymore. It's weird. Weirdest thing ever. Nobody wants to hurry up and leave, right? And the salespeople, they're advocates. They're cheering for our F&I managers, and our F&I managers are cheering for our salespeople. And it's just a much more positive vibe around the dealership. I think the customers feel it, and I know our people feel it in their paychecks, and in terms of their development and their outlook for the future. So huge win. If you're not doing it, it's something you should really, really consider. I know, like you mentioned, Becky, pay plans are a funny thing for a lot of people, but man, that old cliche of pay plans a job description, like, well, quit paying your people to fight with one another. Like, pay them to get along. Like, how hard is that?
No, it's so true. It's like, why in the world do you do that? Why aren't we looking at our pay plans to affect a change? And somebody tried to fight me on that one too. That pay plan, that people don't work a pay plan. I'm like, who doesn't work a pay plan? I mean,
you know what that was? That's an old 20 group with a guy in a walker.
I'll tell you who that was. No, I can't. But it's true. So again, I think a dealer needs to take a look at that, and there's got to be some incentive. Maybe it's an incentive, but it's something where they're being compensated for a percentage of service contracts sold or something along those lines. Those products. What do you do in service? Is there any kind of incentive you got going there for after sale products?
Yeah, so if the service advisor sells a product, they get a commission just like everybody else does, right?
Okay.
So
Wow.
Dennis set it up where they have access to sell the product. Now, service writers don't sell very many products. Now, they do sell a lot of OEM products. So we have a BMW stores, and BMW has a really good program. So they sell 20, 30 a month, but they get a piece of the puzzle, right? It's all fair. It's all fair. We're trying to drive that repeat referral business. So whoever sells the product is going to get some love. No matter if it's a salesperson, they get some love when they sell the product. Of course, the F&I gets the love, but the service advisors also get the love. They don't want to be left out. I like to look at the analogy. If you look back in the 70s and 80s, parts and service managers hate each other's guts. We all try to screw each other over. Those days are over with. And I think today's biggest thing is that variable and fixed needs to break down the barrier and not have that problem anymore. We're all one team together. And if you look at cultures of stores that are working successfully, there is no barrier between, because we're all helping each other out. Because the F&I guy, instead of saying I lock myself in the room and I'm the king guy, no, but if I have my service advisors helping me out, I have my sales managers helping me out, I have my my sales people help me out, guess what? I sell more products, make more money for me and my family, and I'm driving that repeat and referral business that we all talk about.
Amen. Because the repeat customers are like the best customers, and there's just nothing better. I mean, we always know that's the kind of thing that we want to go after. And I like the idea that you have a more holistic approach in your store.
Well, I think that's absolutely massive. I mean, you got to look at the whole picture. I mean, right now, selling cars, I would argue is almost as easy as it would be. On a personal note, I was just looking to buy a side-by-side recently. I'm submitting leads, submitting here or there, and I couldn't get a phone call, an email. I finally get somebody on the phone, and I'm asking a question, and I felt like oh, this guy's asking a question. I don't need to deal with him. He's out, someone else is going to buy it, right? But I think what a lot of us are forgetting right now is, winter is coming, right? This business is going to turn. I think we're all in a really good place. Margins are up, front, back. We're on the right side of the supply and demand chain, but that's going to change. And if we're not really taking care of, our entire house, when sales inevitably slows down and it isn't great, we went through it in 08, we're going to be looking at our friends and fixed. Yes, Tully is my friend. Like, hey, I need to be talking to your customers if I want to continue to make a good living up here in sales and finance. So if we're not working smart right now, we're going to have to work really hard later to stay afloat. And we can totally avoid it. It's all in our control. We just got to make a couple decisions and change some behavior now so we're prepared for the future.
Amen. There's been a lot of conversation that I've had lately. And even with the event is that, right now, car dealers are doing fantastic, right? They're making a lot of profit, doing really well. But that means too, is that are we continuing to train our staff? Are they still having the skill set to sustain profit when things return back to normal? Because it's always going to return back.
No, you're 100% right. And I think that if the last 2 years, I think, when you look at various, partners, we all have, different providers, whether it be partners for our CRM or F&I products or website or training, 2 years of COVID has really provided some really good cloud cover for our vendor partners that maybe some of us have leaned on for training, to where they could sit on the couch and, collect a check, and they're not in our stores training, and giving us, the service that we really pay for. Yeah, we're paying for software, but part of the deal is, hey, we're paying for training and support. And that 2 years is, we've seen that kind of slip away. And, we really need to be leaning into our teams, getting them trained up, getting them ready, because, we've talked about, tough times are around the corner. It might not be next week, might not be till next year, but, all of a sudden you look your head up and it's like, oh man, things are really tough right now. And everybody needs to be trained, fit, and ready to go, because when it hits, the strong are going to survive, and, the weak are going to go do something else.
I couldn't agree with you more. And so to wrap things up for, did you guys go to NADA this year? So what did you take back from, in our conversation, from what happened? What did you take back from NADA this year?
I didn't see anything that was like, wow, how cool is that? A lot of e-commerce, there's a lot of things that are just, I think, hip words. I think what I took back, and I think the Niellos took back together, is that we strengthen those relationships with the vendors that we haven't seen in a while. So like Denis talked about, is that we need to lean on our partners, vendors, I call them partners, to help us, right? And they want to help us, but they're only going to help the people that ask. So I think that, developing those contacts better at NADA, of course, we got to look at some new things too. Denis?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with Tully anymore. There's all kinds of widgets and tools, and every tool is going to do something for you a little better. It just depends on, what you subscribe to. But, I really took away, strengthening those partnerships with who we're using, and really leaning into them for the, the support we need to make sure our salespeople, right? Because at the end of the day, it's the salespeople, it's the service advisors, it's the techs. Those are the guys and gals that get it done. Nothing happens until they do their job. So I really think It's up to us to provide the, the service and support that they need to be as successful as possible. So getting those relationships up and saying, hey, you've been on the couch for 2 years, and I'm saying that, a little joke, but it's time to come back into the store and, help us get ready, because the tide's going to turn and we want to be on the right side of things.
I think that too is that you talk about bringing your vendors, ask them to come out and visit. The thing that Denis and I both did is that, come on out, Cox. And here's the thing, they're like, oh, that sounds like a lot of fun, right? Because they know we're excited about it. So you got to ask these vendors, and the vendors are good partners. They're going to say, absolutely.
Well, I feel like that is so important. I think we have lost out, many dealers have lost out in the 2 years with this COVID from that support. You might have had some online, and that's okay, but there's nothing better when you have that face-to-face conversation. And impact in training and service. So yeah, I relationship is definitely important still. Very important.
No,
So
100%. All the training, sorry to piggyback on this, just one more time. In-person training is it. Just today I was on a webinar and it was training, and you got to have your cameras up. And even when the camera's up, I know they're looking at something over here, and it's like getting that engagement, you can only really get it in person. So leaning into our vendors to help us be ready. It's huge.
I think it is very important. That is something that I do, if you don't mind me saying. So I do provide in dealership training, and I, provide remote or in dealership from the time that the customer certainly lands on the dealership website, from sales to finance, from desking to finance. So I try to help dealers to streamline their processes. So that is important. There's no doubt about it. And sometimes it's very difficult to go ahead and, be able to do something along those lines on a remote basis. So, yeah. So anyway, I think I can't thank you guys enough for a great conversation. Tully, thank you so much. And Denis, I can't thank you enough for being on the F&I Master Series Forum, the digital age. And here's the thing, like I have Atlanta in the background there. Do you kind of see like that is Atlanta, just, oh, by the way. And so I had 2 roundtables, one, and I think Tully and I talked about this yesterday, one in Atlanta and then the other one in Baltimore, and both pretty successful. I've got some pictures to prove it. So I'm just saying, it was awesome. So I've made a decision that I'll have another online event in the summer, but we're taking it back to Atlanta, Georgia in the fall. And it's going to be, right? Come on, guys, let's do this. At the Atlanta Marriott Hotel, Alpharetta again, and we are going to kill it. It's going to be amazing. I've got people already going, I'm going to be there, Becky. We're going to blow this up. It's going to be major fun. So hopefully we can get you guys there too. That would be fantastic.
Well, Denis and I would love to come there, and we'll give us our jingle the whole time. But it was super exciting being on your show today. Great success to you, and you've done such an awful lot for the F&I community, so we can't thank you enough.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Denis.
I really appreciate the invite, Becky. You're the hostess with the mostest. It was really fun being on here with Tully, and I'm really proud of Tully today to see him get over his shyness. So that's been really good.
He's amazing, isn't he? He's great. So thank you, guys. It was a pleasure. I really had a lot of fun. It was good. It was really good and very informative too. So you can have fun and still learn at the same time, right? So good job. Good job. Thanks. Wow, exceptional speakers today, no doubt. Lots of content to take in. I certainly appreciated the opportunity to put the F&I Master Series Forum, the digital age together. It was so much fun. But understand, we have only just begun. I have a huge announcement to make soon, so make sure you tune in. I'll be having my live talk with Becky Chernek this coming Wednesday with some of our featured speakers to go over the content. You've got to join in. It will be on LinkedIn and Facebook live at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now is the time to share your thoughts and get your feedback in. I want to know what you have to say. The live talk with Becky Chernek is on every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join me on LinkedIn and Facebook Live.